Chapter 956, Visiting the Serpent God Hall, 3. Grandfather, grandfather, Huang Wan cried out as she lunged at Huang Tianba. Her voice was filled with panic and terror as her tears flowed like a fountain. Huang Tianba slowly opened his eyes. His face was dull and he struggled to hide his weakness. Luaner, it was your grandfather who caused you harm. I shouldn't have agreed for you to become a disciple of this mongrel, Huang Tianba said weakly. He was furious. Grandfather, sobbed Huang Luan. She had never thought that the ancestor of her clan would be captured by the ancestor of the Huanggu clan. Not only did it completely shatter their relationship, the two of them would probably not be able to leave this place either. Huang Tianba raised his head with difficulty to stare viciously at the ancestor of the Huanggu clan. He gnashed his teeth and said, "You mongrel! I trusted you so much, treating your clan as a friend. Never did I think you would do something like this. What is the absolute secret you're keeping that requires you to lock up the two of us here?" Several days ago, Huang Tianba had received Huang Luan's message. As he had no idea what circumstances Huang Luan faced, he ran over from the Huang family without any preparations. He just wanted to see Huang Luan. But he had never imagined that the ancestor of the Huanggu clan would suddenly attack him when he was unprepared. The ancestor of the Huanggu clan heavily injured him and locked him up, before sealing up his strength with a secret technique. It made him as weak as an ordinary person. Even until now, Huang Tianba had no idea why he was treated like this. The ancestor of the Huanggu clan sneered. "Huang Tian, there's no need for you to know about this. Just spend this period of time at our clan without worry. I definitely won't mistreat you. You mongrel. Luaner's relationship with Jian Chen is very deep, and my family has a close friendship with the person in charge of the Chongyang clan. The Chongyang clan will never let you go." Huang Tianba cried out. The ancestor of the Huanggu clan sniggered. "Huang Tianba, do you think I don't know? Your relationship with the Chongyang clan is completely built off Jian Chen. Now that Jian Chen is not here, the Chongyang clan wouldn't care about your Huang family at all. Moreover, how would the Chongyang clan learn about everything that has happened here? Huang Tianba, you better give up on that thought. You mongrel, there's not going to be a good end to this for you," roared Huang Tianba. A cold light flickered through the eyes of the Huanggu clan ancestor. He sneered, "Humph, Huang Tianba, you've said enough." He directly struck Huang Tianba's back with his palm, causing blood to spray from his mouth. Huang Tianba became even more dejected. "Don't harm grandfather." Huang Luan cried out hysterically. She felt a heart-wrenching pain when she saw Huang Tianba's state. The Huanggu clan ancestor smiled evilly and said, "My dear disciple, your grandfather's life will now be in your hands. If you want him to be safe and sound, you better use the cultivation method I gave you." He left the secret room after saying that, locking Huang Luan inside once again. Huang Luan sobbed quietly as she knelt on the ground. Originally, her only hope was Huang Tianba. But now that he had been captured and constrained, she had nothing to count on anymore. Trapped in the dark windowless room, she was completely cut off from the world. She felt like the sky was collapsing. That was how helpless she felt. "Jian Chen, where are you right now?" Huang Luan sobbed. In this despairing situation, she could not help but think of him. Only Jian Chen, who was on good terms with the Huang family, could contend against the Huanggu clan now. No one outside knew what was happening in the Huanggu clan. Even the Huang family was clueless, as Huang Tianba had told no one where he was going before he left. Meanwhile, the Chongyang clan of Lore City would never think that Huang Tianba would fall into such a horrible situation. Jian Chen entered the territory of the Serpent God Hall all by himself. He whistled through the air as he radiated with a tremendous aura, directly flying over countless clans and organizations. This alerted many people. However, with his current strength, no one dared to come looking for trouble. Even a few people stronger than him did not want to aggravate a powerful opponent over these small matters, as this could bring endless troubles to their clans. There were many more experts at each level of cultivation in the Sea Realm than on the Tianyuan continent, but being a Saint King was still enough to move freely through most places. Jian Chen flew through the territory of the Serpent God Hall without maintaining a low profile, traveling directly to the center of the land with a hostile aura. He finally arrived before the huge Divine Hall after 2 whole days of traveling. The Divine Hall was jet black throughout and hung in the air like a huge castle. It was covered with the engravings of serpent dragons. These serpent dragons were sometimes roaring at the sky. At other times, they displayed their teeth and talons. They all seemed different from one another, yet they were all lifelike. A huge, 30,000-meter-long black serpent dragon coiled at the very top of the structure. It was like a ruler looking down on the world. It radiated with dignity, giving people the feeling that it was the one and only overlord. Jian Chen floated in the air with crossed arms as he radiated with a tremendous pressure. It formed many layers, constantly ramming against the divine hall. Although it could not even move the divine hall, it was filled with provocation. Who dares to act so brazenly before our divine hall? A thunderous roar immediately rang out from inside, and several Saint Ruler emissaries emerged furiously. A cold light flickered through Jian Chen's eyes. Once the emissaries had completely left the divine hall, he flipped his right hand and the emperor armament immediately appeared. He swung it directly at the emissaries. A huge crescent-shaped sword Qi shot out, surging toward the emissaries with a destructive energy. It directly chopped through their chests and bisected their bodies. The emissaries all howled out miserably as they fell from the air while bleeding profusely. Jian Chen's sword Qi continued onward with no decrease in force, ramming heavily against the huge divine hall. A muffled boom erupted as the entire structure shook gently. This action immediately alerted all the experts within. Several tremendous auras immediately flooded out from the divine hall, and several dozen figures all took to the air. They flew out with lightning speed. They were all elders of the Serpent God Hall. Almost half of the Saint Kings in the territory of the Serpent God Hall had appeared, while even more emissaries followed behind them. In the blink of an eye, a large group gathered around Jian Chen. Other than the several dozen Saint Kings, there were hundreds of emissaries. The group formed a huge ring as they surrounded Jian Chen tightly. A vast aura radiated from the mass, crisscrossing in mid-air to form a net that enveloped Jian Chen. Who are you? Name yourself. Are you sick of living? Harming our emissaries and attacking our divine hall? You brat, do you want to die for acting wildly before our divine hall? Countless angry cries rang out from the surroundings as they all stared at Jian Chen as a cold light flickered in their eyes. Killing intent surged as well, but even more of them focused their attention on the emperor armament in Jian Chen's hand. A sharp light flickered in Jian Chen's eyes. He raised his sword toward the sky and shook it. Immediately, it began to glow with a blinding dark light as a destructive aura flooded a radius of several dozen kilometers. He called out, "Don't blame me for being merciless to those who don't shut up." The various sounds immediately disappeared. At that moment, the surroundings became utterly silent. Everyone stared at Jian Chen blankly. They had not been frightened by Jian Chen but surprised. In all these years, there had never been someone in the sea realm who dared to speak so brazenly before so many experts, much less come all by himself to challenge the Serpent God Hall's dignity. Jian Chen was the first. "Humph, you ignorant brat. You overestimate yourself in challenging our hall's dignity. I'll show you what strength really is," growled a white-haired old man. He immediately charged at Jian Chen with a trident in his hand. Jian Chen glanced at the old man as his lips curled up in scorn. He sneered, "A fifth heavenly layer Saint King. You still don't have the right to do that." Jian Chen suddenly stabbed out with his emperor armament and a huge sword Qi shot toward the old man. A great boom erupted when the two collided, like a clap of thunder. It echoed to several hundred kilometers away. The old man grunted and a mouthful of blood sprayed out. He shot back at a speed even greater than what he had initially charged with. In the end, he heavily crashed into the divine hall behind him before finally coming to a stop. At that moment, he vomited another mouthful of blood involuntarily. He had already become pale. The crowd broke into an uproar as everyone's opinion of Jian Chen changed. They all felt shocked as they witnessed a 16th star expert knocked backward and vomiting blood from just a single bout. "The hall elders have arrived." A clear voice rang out from the hall. 6 people of different ages flew out slowly as they traveled next to one another. They did not radiate with any presence or aura, seeming just like ordinary people. Jian Chen immediately looked over and his eyes narrowed. He discovered that he had seen 2 of the 6 before. They were the 2 that accompanied the Serpent God Hall's group to the Octaterra Divine Hall. There are actually 6 hall elders in the Serpent God Hall. That's 6 ninth heavenly layer Saint Kings. Jian Chen's heart shivered. Chapter 957. Visiting the Serpent God Hall. 4. We greet the hall elders. The surrounding people all bowed toward the 6 hall elders. Their faces were filled with respect and admiration. The 15th and 16th star elders all stepped aside to form a path for the hall elders. The 6 hall elders flew over with sunken faces as they glared at Jian Chen. When 2 of them recognized him, their eyes were immediately filled with intense killing intent. Jian Chen, I never thought it would be you. Humph, we didn't go looking for you, yet you've come knocking on our door yourself today. Do you really think you can go against our Serpent God Hall just with your emperor armament? A hall elder said coldly. The eyes of the other hall elders narrowed when they heard that this was Jian Chen. They looked up and down to examine him. One of them said in a gruff voice, So you're Jian Chen, that person who stole the treasure of the Serpent God Hall and obtained the Octaterra Divine Hall. Jian Chen, do you think you can act brazenly now that you've obtained the Divine Hall? Do you believe that we'll smash your hall today? A rather short-tempered hall elder called out. His eyes formed a vicious glare. All the surrounding elders looked toward Jian Chen in surprise when they heard that he was the one who had obtained the Octaterra Divine Hall. Envy and jealousy appeared in their eyes. Jian Chen hovered in the air calmly as he faced the people of the Serpent God Hall. Even though he was trapped in an encirclement, he was not nervous at all. Esteemed hall elders, you have put it too strongly. I have not come today to challenge the dignity of your Serpent God Hall. Even if I was very confident, I definitely do not believe that I possess the strength to go against the Serpent God Hall just by myself, smiled Jian Chen with clasped hands. Humph, you dare to put it like that. First, you wound our emissaries, and then you harm an elder of ours. Do you really think that we're easy to just trample over? Don't think that you can look down on everyone now that the Octaterra Divine Hall is in your hands, a hall elder called out. His tone was very hostile. The people of the Serpent God Hall naturally aren't easy to trample over, but at the same time, neither am I. I injured them before because they were looking for it themselves. You can't blame others, said Jian Chen with a smile. Humph, nice excuse. Then show me just what you're made of, Jian Chen. A cold sliver of light flashed through Hall Elder Charlie's eyes. He was about to move against Jian Chen. Jian Chen remained smiling in mid-air. His smile had become rather evil and rather cold. Suddenly, a huge divine hall appeared out of nowhere. It was grand and majestic, radiating with a mighty pressure. It blotted out the sky. The Octaterra Divine Hall. Calls rang out from the surroundings. The emissaries and the elders all stared at it with burning passion. A powerful desire to take it for themselves flooded their heads. Jian Chen immediately flew inside and fused his soul with the Divine Hall. He had become the Divine Hall, while the Divine Hall was him. He could now use the power hidden inside at will. Charlie immediately calmed down when the Divine Hall appeared. He stared at it fixedly and grimly. Esteemed Hall Elders, do you dare to fight me in the Divine Hall? Jian Chen's voice rang out from inside. It was extremely loud, reverberating through a radius of several hundred kilometers. Jian Chen did not fear the Hall Elders at all when inside the Divine Hall. Although the Hall Master of the Sea Goddess Hall had told him that it would be best if he did not offend the Hall Elders of the Serpent God Hall, Jian Chen had been forced into such a horrible position by them before. He needed to take revenge for the previous matters now that the opportunity had arisen. Jian Chen had already made up his mind about trampling over the Hall Elders' dignity before he had come. Even though he could not harm them, he utterly humiliated them. The 6 elders paled from fury after hearing Jian Chen's arrogant words. Flames of rage burned within them, but none of them dared to fight Jian Chen in the Divine Hall. Even the brash Charlie did not dare to. If they really entered the Divine Hall, there would only be death for them given that their strengths were only at the peak of Saint King. They would not be facing up against a 7th heavenly layer Saint King, but a Saint Emperor. Esteemed Hall Elders, do you dare to take me on? Jian Chen's voice rang out once again. He could not help but think about how his group of 3 were pursued by the experts of the Serpent God Hall all those years ago and had almost lost their lives. At that time, they probably would have been imprisoned by the 2 halls if the experts of the Sea Goddess Hall had not come to rescue them at the most crucial moment. He would not be standing here gloriously. Jian Chen, you're too presumptuous, a hall elder cursed in anger. Normally, he was someone who stood above others. He could end lives or change fates with a wave of his hand. How could he endure such embarrassment, let alone the one embarrassing them had been treated as a mere ant by them a few years ago? Let's work together and attack the Divine Hall. Let's break it, Charlie said furiously. Powerful ripples of energy had already appeared around him. The 6 hall elders moved together, striking the divine hall as hard as they could. Immediately, a terrifying ripple of residual energy was formed and began wreaking havoc in the surroundings like a storm. Meanwhile, the divine hall also began to tremble violently. The attacks from the 6 hall elders were not able to break the divine hall, but it was enough to shake the hall up. The divine hall enlarged abruptly, reaching over 10,000 meters in length. It hung in the sky like a dark cloud that blotted out the sun. Afterward, it began to fall with a tremendous aura, smashing heavily toward all of them. The elders and the emissaries were also under the divine hall beside the hall elders. The elders were all saint kings, while the emissaries ranged from heaven saint master to saint ruler. Regardless, they all fled toward the surroundings. The divine hall fell extremely fast, so fast that they could not dodge at all. The cold, heavy surface come into contact with them very quickly, pushing them down from the air. Push! A hall elder roared. He placed both his hands on the bottom of the hall in an attempt to stop its descent. Unfortunately, the divine hall was just too heavy. It was several million times heavier than mountains, so they could not stop it at all even when they worked together. Boom! The Octaterra divine hall struck the ground heavily. At that moment, the entire world seemed to shake. The surrounding ground trembled violently as if a huge earthquake had just occurred. The giant divine hall smashed into the ground, causing half of it to be submerged underground. It formed a deep pit, while the 6 hall elders, the various elders, and the emissaries were all buried under it. Jian Chen, don't you even think that you can leave our territory alive today? Someone roared out from below. The voice was filled with utter rage. The 6 hall elders carved out a tunnel from underground, emerging from beside the hall. A few elders followed behind them. None of the group had been injured, other than seeming ruffled. On the other hand, the Heaven Saint Master emissaries suffered wounds that varied in intensity. Rumble! The Octaterra Divine Hall trembled gently in the ground and slowly rose up into the air. It faced and floated a distance from the Divine Hall of the Serpent God Hall as if it was challenging it. You sure talk big. If I want to leave, just you won't be enough to stop me. It'll only be possible if your Hall Master personally comes out. Jian Chen's voice rang out from the Divine Hall. It was filled with confidence. The 6 hall elders floated far away and looked at each other. Afterward, they gritted their teeth and knelt on one knee together, calling out loudly, "We request for the hall master to personally punish the person who impinges on our hall's dignity." Once Jian Chen hid inside his Octaterra Divine Hall, the 6 hall elders could do nothing to him. A while later, their faces were all replaced with shock and they immediately stood up. They eyed the Octaterra Divine Hall viciously. Jian Chen, no wonder you're brave enough to come provoke our hall just by yourself. So you've persuaded the hall master of the Sea Goddess Hall to keep our hall master busy, growled a hall elder. Jian Chen knew that the hall master of the Sea Goddess Hall had probably already fought with the hall master of the Serpent God Hall when he heard that. He immediately rejoiced. Whatever, Jian Chen. You win. Speak. How can we get you to stop today? The hall elders finally gave in. Although they were completely unwilling, they had no other choice. My requests are very simple. First, return the item that the 4 divine generals of your hall stole from me all those years ago. Second, let me have a battle to the death with the 4 of them, where no one can interfere, said Jian Chen. The 6 hall elders hesitated slightly, before agreeing in the end. Third, there were once 3 people who ambushed me in the territory of the Sea Goddess Hall. They were Li Fengxing, Zhou Tianzi, and Zhou Yunzi. I want you to hand over the 3 of them, said Jian Chen. The faces of the 6 hall elders became rather ugly. They looked at each other, before agreeing in the end. Only their hallmaster could break the Octaterra Divine Hall right now, yet he was currently busy with the hallmaster of the Sea Goddess Hall and could not help them at all. They could do nothing to Jian Chen just by themselves, and if they remained in this stalemate, it would just make the Serpent God Hall seem even worse. Their top priority was to chase away this vengeful and troublesome person. All right, we agree. We will hand Li Fengxing to you, but Zhou Tianzi and Zhou Yunzi aren't part of the Serpent God Hall. If you want the 2 of them, you need to go to the Heaven Spirit Hall, said a hall elder. Chapter 958. Taking Revenge. Someone go and call the 4 divine generals and Li Fengxing, a hall elder ordered. Immediately, an elder in a horrible shape flew into the divine hall, inviting the four divine generals and Li Fengxing outside. 5 powerful presences began to radiate from within the divine hall, and the 4 divine generals and Li Fengxing flew out. The 2 divine generals that had been captured by Atlantis were bought back by the Serpent God Hall with a huge ransom fee. Jian Chen's eyes immediately became filled with killing intent when he saw his former enemies. He glared at the 5 of them. The divine generals and Li Fengxing clearly already knew about the situation at hand. Their complexions were very ugly and possessed some grimness. "We greet the hall elders." The 5 of them simultaneously clasped their hands at the 6 hall elders. 4 divine generals, Li Fengxing, the warrior Jian Chen wants to challenge you. You shall fight him and represent the Serpent God Hall, a hall elder said, sighing gently. The 5 of them all looked toward the huge Octaterra Divine Hall when they heard that. They were all bitter-faced. Although they had remained in the Divine Hall throughout the entire process, they knew exactly what was happening outside. However, they struggled to accept that Jian Chen, who had been so powerless against them several years ago, was now terrifying. With the Octaterra Divine Hall, even the 6 hall elders could do nothing against him. Jian Chen appeared at the entrance of the Divine Hall and said to the 6 hall elders, "I hope none of you interfere as I fight them. Otherwise, I won't be ending the matter here. I will definitely create a big mess out of the Serpent God Hall." "Naturally. You do not have to worry. No other person from the Serpent God Hall will be fighting except the 5 of them," a hall elder said with a darkened face. Their Serpent God Hall had been completely humiliated with how everything had unfolded. Jian Chen floated out with the Emperor armament in hand. He did not put the Octaterra Divine Hall away, leaving it to hover high up above everyone. It was like a dark cloud, darkening the surroundings. "Divine generals, where is the item you stole from me all those years ago?" Jian Chen stared coldly at the divine generals. A divine general ripped off his clothes, revealing a glimmering golden silk mail underneath. He said coldly, "I'm wearing it. If you have the ability, come take it." Jian Chen's gaze became even colder. "You still don't have the right to wear it. I'll take it back in the exact same way you took it from me back then. Come at me, the 5 of you." Seeing how Jian Chen wanted to take on the 5 of them at the same time so arrogantly, Li Fengxing could not help but laugh aloud. "All right, Jian Chen. That was what you said. I hope you don't try to take it back later." Li Fengxing then turned to the 4 divine generals and sneered, "Let's go and teach that ignorant bastard a solid lesson." The 4 divine generals sneered as they celebrated inside. They knew that Jian Chen was now powerful. It would be difficult for them to be victorious if they were to fight him one-on-one. However, Jian Chen actually stated brazenly that he wanted to take all 5 of them on at the same time. This filled them with confidence. Li Fengxiang was a 6th heavenly layer Saint King, the most powerful magical beast present in the Sea Realm, while the 4 divine generals were all 5th heavenly layer Saint Kings and commonly used joint attacks. The 4 of them had worked together for many years, reaching a level of tacit understanding in battle. When the 5 of them fought together, they would even be able to take on a 7th heavenly layer Saint King. The 4 divine generals and Li Fengxing were all beasts, and their most powerful weapons were their claws. Their hands immediately turned into huge dragon claws or hairy black bear paws, which they swung simultaneously. A chain of powerful energy shot toward Jian Chen. Jian Chen swung his emperor armament and a huge crescent-shaped sword chi shot out. It dispersed all 5 attacks. "This type of attack can't hurt me at all. Is this all the 4 divine generals and the strongest magical beast has?" Jian Chen said coldly. A sliver of fierce light flashed through the eyes of the 4 divine generals and Li Fengxing. They all bellowed as tremendous energy surged out of them. It coiled around them, gradually forming 4 300-meter-long serpent dragons and an extremely huge black bear. Roar! The black bear produced a deafening roar and fell to its 4 paws and charged menacingly toward Jian Chen. The 4 huge serpent dragons that were condensed out of energy roared at the sky angrily as well, before actually slowly fusing together. The black bear was also condensed from vast amounts of energy and world force. It ran extremely quickly, arriving before Jian Chen in the blink of an eye. Jian Chen directly chopped at the black bear as his emperor armament shone with a dazzling dark light. He remained cool and composed throughout. Before the sword chi had struck the black bear exploded in mid-air with a deafening boom. A terrifying storm of energy erupted and started to ruin the surroundings. It caused the surrounding space to distort and turn into a blur. With a series of movements, Jian Chen shot backward under the pummeling of the energy storm. This was the effects of Li Fengxing's full power strike. Jian Chen was unable to block it as he was in mid-air. At that moment, a figure shot out from the center of the explosion toward Jian Chen. Two huge bare paws that radiated with a powerful energy swept toward Jian Chen's throat and head. Jian Chen's lips curled into a disdainful smile. Chapter 959. Serpent God's Fury. The four divine generals were covered with wounds as a layer of blood dyed them completely red. They were in a horrible shape. The experts who watched on from the side were filled with deep shock. Not only did Jian Chen have the Octaterra Divine Hall protecting him, he was so powerful as well. It was enough to place him among the supreme experts of the Sea Realm. They were sure that Jian Chen's name would resound through the entire Sea Realm after this storm with the Serpent God Hall blew over. He would be regarded as one of the great experts within the Sea Realm. The 6 Hall Elders all furrowed their brows tightly. They could all tell that Jian Chen was torturing the 4 divine generals, but they had an agreement before to not interfere at all. They were filled with helplessness even though they did not want the 4 divine generals to suffer the merciless torture of Jian Chen. The Emperor armament lashed out as a blur time after time toward the 4 divine generals, causing their wounds to multiply. The 4 divine generals had fallen to the point where they could not even counterattack under Jian Chen's storm-like blows. If it were not for the fact that Jian Chen wanted to torture them, they would have passed away long ago. The 4 divine generals quickly retreated, before separating in the end. Only when they shot off in different directions did they break free from Jian Chen, but that only applied to 3 people. The last person still faced Jian Chen's rain of attacks as he fled. He was the one who had taken Jian Chen's golden silk mail. Jian Chen, even if I die here today, I won't let you have it easy. Soaring fury burned in the divine general's eyes as he suddenly began to bulge. His clothes were ripped to shred and he became a 300-meter-long serpent dragon in the blink of an eye. The golden silk mail on him bulged as well, but it did not rip. It was expanded by countless times, becoming like a belt. It wounded around the upper half of the serpent dragon's body tightly, but it was unable to completely cover it. Roar! The serpent dragon roared furiously at the sky and a thick layer of blood-red light began to shine from it. Its presence also began to skyrocket at an unbelievable rate with the appearance of the light, reaching the 6th heavenly layer of Saint King. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. He knew that his opponent had used a secret technique that temporarily increased his strength, but it would definitely cause great harm to the user afterward. Next, a senseless incantation began to ring out from the serpent dragon's mouth, becoming louder and louder. It echoed through the surroundings like a song. The expressions of the 6 Hall Elders began to darken. One of them said involuntarily, "This is the Serpent God's fury. He actually cast that. Doesn't he know just how severe the consequences are?" Arriving before him, he directly ripped off the golden silk mail from his body, before chopping toward his head mercilessly. "Third brother! Third bro!" The 3 other divine generals all called out when they saw this. They paid no attention to the danger and charged over in an attempt to save the divine general. However, they were not as fast as Jian Chen's sword. With a crack, Jian Chen lopped off the divine general's head with a single stroke. "Today, the 4 divine generals of the Serpent God Hall will cease to exist," sneered Jian Chen. The Emperor armament in his hands turned into a black streak of light as he stabbed toward the head, wanting to disperse the soul within. Chapter 960. Proceeding to the Heaven Spirit Hall. From today onward, the 4 divine generals of the Serpent God Hall shall cease to exist, sneered Jian Chen. The Emperor armament in his hand immediately turned into another black streak of light. It stabbed out, wanting to wipe out the soul in the head. An extremely great energy shot over from nearby at this very moment and struck Jian Chen's weapon forcefully. A Hall Elder had struck out at this crucial moment. With a boom, it knocked away the weapon. At the same time, the upper skull of the divine general exploded. A soul flew out from within, quickly flying toward the Hall Elders. Immediately, one of them pulled out a bottle that shone with a faint blue light from his space ring and collected the soul. Jian Chen was immediately enraged when he saw that the divine general that was about to fall to his hand being saved so easily by a Hall Elder. He suddenly glared toward the Hall Elder and growled, "Hall Elder, did you really forget our agreement so quickly? Are you saying that the esteemed Hall Elders of the Serpent God Hall, those who stand above millions, are people who break their word?" Jian Chen's voice was filled with sarcasm. The hall elders looked at each other and revealed a sliver of helplessness. After all, the 4 divine generals were all 16th star experts, so they were a part of the divine hall's absolute power. They were unwilling to watch someone like this just die before them. Jian Chen, you've already won your battle with the 4 divine generals. The 4 of them are not your opponents, said a hall elder with a sigh. Jian Chen became extremely pale and said coldly, I said before that I wanted to have a fight to the death with the divine generals, and you promised that you would not interfere with this at all. I don't want victory, I want their lives. A sliver of killing intent flashed through his eyes, then he charged toward the other 3 divine generals. All 3 divine generals were completely dumbstruck when they personally witnessed Jian Chen breaking through the serpent god's fury. They had lost the confidence to battle long ago. They could not help but feel fear as Jian Chen charged toward them. Although the 4 of them all knew the forbidden technique, their comprehensions of the serpent god's fury was only at the first layer. All they could do was project the claw of the serpent god, which was unable to harm Jian Chen. Moreover, it would also consume much of their vital essence and result in a decrease of strength. It was just not worth it. Save us, hall elders. A divine general began to call out for help. The 3 of them knew that it would entirely depend on the hall elders if they could make it out alive today or not. A hall elder produced a soft sigh, before appearing before the 3 of them with a slight movement. He blocked Jian Chen. Jian Chen's expression changed slightly and he came to a screeching stop. With a thought, the huge cloud-like divine hall suddenly began to descend forcefully. It stopped 20 meters above Jian Chen. The expressions of the hall elders and the other experts all changed, becoming slightly grim when they saw this. They had all experienced the power of the Octaterra Divine Hall. Although it was unable to cause much threat to them outside, it was enough to reduce them to a horrible shape if it was used like before. Jian Chen was filled with confidence as he had the protection of the Divine Hall. He stared icily at the Hall Elder and asked, Hall Elder, may I ask of your intentions? Secretly, Jian Chen had made the preparations to enter the Divine Hall at any time. He was no opponent of the Hall Elder without it. Jian Chen, you've already forced us into such a horrible position. You've completely taken revenge for the humiliation you've suffered before, and you must have vented all your anger already. Why don't both of us take a step back and stop here, and the Serpent God Hall will no longer go looking for any trouble with you, the Hall Elder said tactfully. It was more than enough to see exactly what Jian Chen had forced the Serpent God Hall into for a mighty Hall Elder to speak so tactfully. Unfortunately, Jian Chen begged to differ. He would not give up on the matter of the pursuit all those years ago with just a few words. This was because he had sacrificed 500 years of his life to deal with the people who chased them before. Jian Chen flew into the Divine Hall and a grand loud voice rang out. I will be taking the lives of the 4 divine generals no matter what. Hall elders, since you have failed to keep your word, it is no longer my fault if I completely humiliate you. Today, your floating divine hall shall be smashed into the ground. How dare you, Jian Chen? A few hall elders cried out in unison. Jian Chen immediately allowed the divine hall to fly high up, arriving above the Serpent God Hall's divine hall directly before smashing downward viciously. At this moment, an extremely terrifying presence appeared from within the divine hall, containing towering anger and horrifying killing intent. All the surrounding energy of the world calmed down with its appearance as if it was in fear. Jian Chen, on the other hand, felt an extremely terrifying aura tightly lock onto the entire Octaterra Divine Hall, causing it to come to a stop. Saint Emperor of the Serpent God Hall. Jian Chen was shocked and immediately realized that the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall was about to strike out. It's the Hall Master. We plead the Hall Master to destroy his Octaterra Divine Hall. The people from the Serpent God Hall lit up when they sensed the aura's appearance and immediately knelt down. Jian Chen, don't go overboard. A harsh, heavy voice cut through the Octaterra Divine Hall and Jian Chen heard it clearly. It was not difficult to tell from the voice that it was a middle-aged man. This is the voice of the Serpent God Hall Master. Jian Chen immediately guessed the person's identity. Other than the Hall Master, he could not think of anyone else who possessed such terrifying strength. Jian Chen, this is enough. You should stop. Another voice rang out in Jian Chen's head. It was gentle but cold, the voice of the Sea Goddess Hall Master. In the end, the Octaterra Divine Hall came to a slow stop without colliding into the Serpent God Hall's Divine Hall. Jian Chen then emerged from his Divine Hall and said, Hall elders, I'll leave the lives of the divine generals with you for now, but it's best if you don't interfere when I deal with Li Fengxing. With that, Jian Chen immediately charged toward the magical beast. Li Fengxing's expression changed slightly. Seeing how the hall elders had no intentions of helping him out, he shot upward from the ground toward the sky without the slightest hesitation. Li Fengxing was one of the murderers of the Turtle Clan's Grand Elder, so Jian Chen would not let him go no matter what. He followed quickly, disappearing high up into the sky as he tailed Li Fengxing. The two of them moved extremely fast, reaching the barrier of the sea realm in the blink of an eye. Without any reluctance, Li Fengxing directly passed through the barrier before turning around to laugh. I've stayed in the sea realm for long enough. It's about time I left. Jian Chen, if you want to kill me, come find me on the Beast God continent. I will be waiting for you there. With that, he ripped open a space gate and left through it. The barrier of the sea realm isolated it as an independent world, where Saint Kings were unable to create space gates. However, this limitation did not exist outside the barrier. Jian Chen stopped at the edge of the barrier as he stared darkly at Li Fengxing, who had already fled. He said coldly, I will be going to the Beast God continent sooner or later. At that time, I'd like to see where you will flee to. Jian Chen returned from his pursuit with nothing in the end. The barrier only obstructed the entry of foreign Saint Kings. If a foreign Saint King left through it, they would not be able to return. Jian Chen descended from the sky and landed on the Octaterra Divine Hall. He said coldly, I will be taking the lives of the divine generals no matter what. Be aware, people of the Serpent God Hall, I will be returning one day in the future. At that time, even you Hall elders won't be able to stop me personally. Jian Chen left the area in the Octaterra Divine Hall, only leaving behind a group of people standing around uglily. No one dared to utter a word about it. Jian Chen failed to kill the 4 divine generals in this trip to the Serpent God Hall as he had initially intended. Despite this, he managed to snatch back his golden silk mail. At the same time, he managed to create turmoil for the Serpent God Hall and humiliated them. The Hall Elders of the Heaven Spirit Hall all gathered in a conference room at the very top of the Heaven Spirit Hall Supreme Divine Hall not long after Jian Chen had left the Serpent God Hall. They stood in a line, all bearing expressions of respect. Before them sat a blurry man on a throne. His appearance could not be seen clearly at all. You probably all know what has happened at the Serpent God Hall. Jian Chen's currently making his way toward our Heaven Spirit Hall. Besides me, even if you all work together, you won't be able to break through the Octaterra Divine Hall. However, Jian Chen also has the support of the Hall Master from the Sea Goddess Hall. As such, if I attempt to strike out, she will definitely keep me busy. So when Jian Chen comes, do not agitate him. Try to fulfill his wishes to the best of your ability, the figure on the throne said. Hall Master, what should we do if he asks for the lives of the 3 disciplinary elders? A Hall Elder asked. I'll leave it up to you. Just try not to offend Jian Chen. His growth is too fast, reaching the 16th star from the 14th star in just a few short years. Someone with talent like that is no one ordinary. He can also use the Emperor armament from human emperors, so I deduce that he's not from the sea realm. He is probably a human from the Tian Yuan continent. If it's possible, do all you can do pull him to our side. When he becomes an emperor, he may be able to help us significantly by fulfilling my greatest wish, said the Heaven Spirit Hall Master. Yes, Hall Master. We know what we should do, replied the Hall Masters. Also, don't we have quite a few humans and magical beasts in the sea realm? Send some of them to the Tian Yuan continent to investigate Jian Chen's background. Chapter 961. 3 underlings. Jian Chen traveled away from the Serpent God Hall in the Octaterra Divine Hall, before leaving the Divine Hall after confirming that there was no one in pursuit. He then directly flew toward the Heaven Spirit Hall in the air. Although the Octaterra Divine Hall could fly as well, it was much slower than Jian Chen traveling personally. He could only travel like this to reach the Heaven Spirit Hall in the shortest amount of time. However, the Divine Hall was still in Jian Chen's possession after all. Even if Hall Elder level people from the Serpent God Hall came to deal with him, he would be able to hide in the Divine Hall in time. This would allow him to fend them off using the Divine Hall's power. After all, Jian Chen had completely humiliated the Serpent God Hall this time. No one could be certain that experts from the Serpent God Hall would not tail him secretly and ambush him. Jian Chen flew cautiously, but it was peaceful along the way. He entered the territory of the Heaven Spirit Hall very quickly. Jian Chen finally made his way to the Divine Hall of the Heaven Spirit Hall after some more traveling. When he arrived, many experts were gathered outside the hall. There were even a few hall elders standing at the forefront. It was like they had been waiting for a long time. "You must be Warrior Jian Chen," a hall elder said with clasped hands. His voice was steady, bearing no arrogance or pride at all. Jian Chen stood in the air with the Octa Terra Divine Hall in hand. He gazed past all the people coldly and said, "Correct, I am Jian Chen. Looks like you've received the news long ago and have spent quite the time waiting here sternly." The hall elder smiled. "Spot on, Warrior Jian Chen. You must have come for the business a few years ago. Since you've already guessed my intentions, let's cut to the chase. Hand over the 3 disciplinary elders that pursued me before, as well as Zhou Tianzi and Zhou Yunzi," Jian Chen said coldly. A hall elder waved his hand and called out to the back, "Bring them over." 2 black-robed young men that seemed around 30 years old brought up 5 tied-up individuals from behind very quickly. 2 of them seemed exactly the same, making it extremely difficult to distinguish between the 2. Jian Chen's eyes immediately became filled with killing intent when he saw the twins. He said coldly, "Zhou Tianzi, Zhou Yunzi, never have you thought that a day like this would come, have you?" Zhou Yunzi and Zhou Tianzi both had their strength personally sealed up by the hall elders, so they were completely equivalent to normal people. The 2 of them stared at the hall elders in fury and gnashed their teeth. "Never did we think that the great Heaven Spirit Hall would do such wretched things. We 2 brothers have worked for your hall for so many years as guest elders. We've done quite a lot in these years. It may not necessarily be meritorious, but it was still hard work. Let alone the fact that we 2 only went to hunt Jian Chen under your orders. Now that he's become strong, you toss out the 2 of us as scapegoats. Humph, we sure are blind. If we knew that your hall possessed such ungrateful people, we would have never taken up the position of guest elders." The hall elder furrowed slightly after hearing their words and growled, "Seal their lips." An elder immediately took a step forward, directly pointing at their throats. They lost the ability to talk. Afterward, the tied-up brothers and the 3 disciplinary elders were all brought before Jian Chen. Jian Chen could not help but frown slightly when he saw this. He had not thought that the Heaven Spirit Hall would follow along so meekly. They had tied up 2 powerful guest elders like this so straightforwardly. It did not match up at all with what he believed would happen. "Warrior Jian Chen, we are handing over Zhou Yunzi and Zhou Tianzi who hunted you all those years ago to you. You can deal with them as you wish. We, the Heaven Spirit Hall, will definitely not interfere," the hall elder said with a smile. "Do you plan on neutralizing my enmity with your hall by handing over the 2 of them?" Jian Chen asked expressionlessly. "Correct, it's just as what you have said. We do not want to be enemies with you. While everything that happened all those years ago was a misunderstanding. We originally planned on inviting you as a guest to our hall, but we never thought that everything would spiral out of control. This led to all those misunderstandings between us. I am representing the Heaven Spirit Hall in giving the most sincere apology. I hope that you can forgive us for everything we have done from the misunderstandings all those years ago." The hall elder's words were filled with sincerity. He did not seem to be acting at all. Jian Chen stared fixedly at the hall elders of the Heaven Spirit Hall as the light in his eyes flickered. This development of the situation had completely surprised him. He had originally thought that he would at least need to have a great battle with the Heaven Spirit Hall, just like what had happened with the Serpent God Hall, to resolve the matter. However, he had never thought that the Heaven Spirit Hall would apologize by themselves. He found this quite unbelievable. After a period of hesitation, the Divine Hall in Jian Chen's left hand suddenly expanded and then he tossed the 2 people into it. They could not resist at all, and the Divine Hall returned to his hand quickly afterward. Jian Chen said to the hall elder, "Just Zhou Tianzi and Zhou Yunzi is far from enough for us to reconcile over the matters from before." The hall elders seemed to have anticipated that Jian Chen would say something like this long ago. As such, without any reactions, one of them ordered, "Summon the 3 Deccan elders." Very quickly, the 3 people were summoned from the Divine Hall of the Heaven Spirit Hall. They remained as usual, bearing no particular emotions. "Warrior Jian Chen, the 3 disciplinary elders have come. Why don't we get the 3 of them to apologize to you and clean off the slate with that?" A hall elder added in suggestion. A simple apology won't be enough, Jian Chen said as he shook his head gently. Although the Heaven Spirit Hall had behaved extremely kindly, a simple apology definitely would not be enough to make up for the time that they had tried to hunt him down all those years ago. Warrior Jian Chen, may I ask what you need such that you can let this matter go? A hall elder asked with no particular emotion, but some anger had already sprouted in his heart. They were one of the 3 great halls. They had never ever spoken so kindly and meekly to someone. Jian Chen was a first. There's only one way to resolve it, and that is for me to personally end their lives in vengeance, Jian Chen said sharply. He was unwilling to give in. Jian Chen, you've gone overboard. The expressions of a few hall elders changed in reaction to his words and someone immediately called out involuntarily. He was filled with anger. The 3 disciplinary elders were all members of the upper echelon, the true core members of the Heaven Spirit Hall. Their status could not be compared to Zhou Tianzi and Zhou Yunzi, as the 2 of them were foreigners. They could be cast aside at any time, but they could not lose the 3 disciplinary elders. Jian Chen's face sank and the Octaterra Divine Hall immediately flew from his hand. It suddenly began to expand and at the same time, the Emperor armament appeared in his right hand. It shone with a dazzling dark light while its aura of destruction flooded the region. Since you beg to differ, you will be up for a battle. Jian Chen's voice was icy while killing intent surged in his eyes. He had made the preparations for battle long ago. He would not let them go just because of the friendly manner of the Heaven Spirit Hall. The hall elders all became rather ugly from this development of the situation, but none of them planned to fight Jian Chen. Even if they ignored the fact that they could not harm Jian Chen at all since he had the Octaterra Divine Hall, their relationship would go downhill as soon as they began fighting. This was disobeying the order set down by the Hall Master. Fine. Fine. Jian Chen, we will let you deal with the 3 disciplinary elders, a hall elder said helplessly. The faces of the disciplinary elders all sank when they heard that. A sliver of emptiness filled their eyes that now brimmed with despair. The 3 disciplinary elders all stopped 20 meters away from Jian Chen and said proudly, Jian Chen, we're here. If you want to kill us, if you want to torture us, go ahead. The 3 disciplinary elders carried no fear. They did not fear death. The 3 of them knew very well that the Heaven Spirit Hall had abandoned them, but they had no complaints at all. After all, their loyalty to the Heaven Spirit Hall was undoubtedly great to be able to become disciplinary elders. Jian Chen, the 3 disciplinary elders are all central members of our hall. We don't want to watch them just die here like this either. Why don't we get the 3 of them to swear their loyalty to you in exchange for their lives? An old voice boomed in Jian Chen's ear at this very moment. Jian Chen's eyes lit up when he heard that, before glancing at the hall elders. He then said to the 3 disciplinary elders, I'll give you an opportunity to live. Swear your loyalty to me. The 3 disciplinary elders looked at each other when they heard this and immediately revealed a sliver of determination. They would rather die than obey. However, their faces changed very quickly and after some slight deliberation as if they were caught in a dilemma, they agreed to Jian Chen's suggestion in the end. All right, the 3 of us will now completely devote ourselves to you. Chapter 962. The White Tiger's breakthrough. Jian Chen immediately became filled with indescribable delight when he heard that all 3 of the disciplinary elders were actually willing to obey his words. All 3 of them had broken through during the years Jian Chen spent in the Octaterra Divine Hall, and were now all 6th Heavenly Layer Saint Kings. The power Jian Chen possessed would increase once the 3 of them decided to follow him. Before, Jian Chen had thought of trying to make the disciplinary elders and the divine general submit to him. He had considered it, but he had dismissed the thought as soon as it appeared. This was because he knew that both the divine generals and the disciplinary elders were people of great power in their respective halls. Their statuses were extraordinary, and with that naturally came a great pride. Subduing them and making them follow him would be extremely difficult. The reason why the 3 of them had agreed so straightforwardly was all because the hall elders of the Heaven Spirit Hall had been helping him secretly. The 3 disciplinary elders would have rather died than submit without the persuasion of the hall elders. Please use a secret technique to swear a blood oath that you will never betray me. Jian Chen maintained his calm demeanor and said. The 3 disciplinary elders gnashed their teeth before they all swore a blood oath. They used their own essence blood to draw up an ancient contract. They handed it over to Jian Chen. With this contract, Jian Chen basically held the lives of the 3 in his hands at all times. Warrior Jian Chen, does this satisfy your needs? A hall elder asked calmly, though he felt quite heavy-hearted. Jian Chen was obviously extremely happy after gaining the loyalty of 3/6 heavenly layer Saint Kings, but he showed none of it. He said nonchalantly, since your Heaven Spirit Hall is so sincere in your apology, I naturally won't be petty. The enmity that once existed between us is now all wiped off the slate. Jian Chen left with the 3 disciplinary elders after resolving the matters with the Heaven Spirit Hall, making way directly to the territory of the Sea Goddess Hall. The Hall elders had also dismissed the 3 disciplinary elders from their positions in the Heaven Spirit Hall. As such, they were now people completely unbound to anything. They could now move freely between the 3 territories of the Sea Realm. The group of people outside the Heaven Spirit Hall did not disperse for quite some time even after Jian Chen had left. They all stood outside and stared off in the direction where the 4 people had left. They were all in complete dejection. The 3 disciplinary elders were virtually people of the same age as the Hall elders. The Hall elders possessed a friendship of thousands of years with the 3 of them, so they were extremely close. Their departure naturally affected the Hall elders by quite some bit. All the elders and emissaries were utterly dejected. They just could not understand why the esteemed Hall elders would make such a decision. The Great Heaven Spirit Hall actually feared a junior. Not only did they shy away from battle, they even sent away the 3 great disciplinary elders to satiate the person's anger. All of them struggled to find a reason even after much thought, feeling great disbelief for the whole matter. This was completely different to how the Heaven Spirit Hall would normally resolve matters. Let's go. Remember, do not leak a simple part of what has happened today to the outside, and do not seek revenge with Jian Chen. Those who do not comply will suffer the most severe punishment, a Hall elder said gruffly. Everyone could not help but dismiss their thoughts of revenge when they heard the mention of the most severe punishment. They were in fear. Jian Chen flew through the air with the 3 disciplinary elders. They traveled extremely quickly, shooting through the sky like meteors. 3 elder, how may I refer to you? Jian Chen smiled faintly as he turned around to ask. These 3 people had once tried to hunt him down, but they were now completely people of his side. Jian Chen was also able to dismiss all his previous impressions of them as a result. Lan Jing, Xian Pian, Mokas. The 3 people all stated their names. They were all old men who seemed like they were in their 70s, and they all wore cloth robes. Their appearances were not striking in any shape or form, so it really was difficult to tell by appearance alone that they were 6th heavenly layer Saint Kings. The 3 disciplinary elders clearly were unable to truly give in to following Jian Chen. The 3 of them remained stern and said nothing else other than stating their names. The 4 of them no longer spoke anymore for the rest of the trip. They directly arrived at the Turtle Clan. Currently, virtually all the experts of the clan were out at war under Tai Do's lead. They were forcefully seizing back their former crystal mines, so the clan seemed quite empty. We greet the ruler. We greet the ruler. As soon as Jian Chen returned to the clan, all the people he passed by knelt down and greeted him courteously. They looked toward Jian Chen in respect and admiration. After organizing where the 3 disciplinary elders would live and allowing them to settle down, Jian Chen immediately locked himself up in a secret room and entered the Saint artifact. Newbies was still devoting himself to the study of the Tian-level Saint technique, and had no impression of time. Meanwhile, Xia Wang was using the cultivation method left behind by the Octaterra Emperor to cultivate. Jian Chen did not disturb the 2 of them and instead made his way directly into the depths of the hall, before arriving before a 30-meter-tall door. Rumble. The door opened under the artifact spirit's secret control. As soon as even a crack had appeared, a vast pressure gushed out and filled the hall. The pressure was still not powerful enough to affect Jian Chen in any way, but it was filled with a domineering aura. This aura was actually countless times denser than the aura of the serpent dragons on the divine hall of the Serpent God Hall. With the doors opening, a harmonious white light suddenly shone out, illuminating the entire hall. The origins of this harmonious white light was actually a huge white tiger that lay there with its eyes closed. It was 30 meters long and completely covered with snow-white fur, while each strand of its hair shone with harmonious light. Meanwhile, a pair of huge wings were unfurled comfortably in the space as they floated up and down slowly. In the recent years, the white tiger had always spent its time in the Saint artifact to increase its strength through consuming heavenly resources. Its strength really could have been described as skyrocketing, as it had just broken through to Class 7 right now. Perhaps due to sensing Jian Chen's arrival, the white tiger's eyes suddenly snapped open. When it saw Jian Chen, its eyes lit up and it produced an excited cry. It then proceeded to run toward Jian Chen. Mid-air, it shrank quickly, and by the time it had landed on Jian Chen's shoulder, it had turned back to the size of a household cat. Emmer! The white tiger produced a deep purr. As it lied on Jian Chen's shoulder, it nibbled his hair while laying his front paws on Jian Chen's head. It seemed to be grumbling about why Jian Chen took so long to visit it. Jian Chen could not help but smile from the bottom of his heart when he saw how mischievous the white tiger still was. He extended a hand to lift the white tiger from his shoulder to his lap, before gently rubbing its furry head. Although the white tiger was now a Class 7 magical beast, its age was barely anything like that. It still possessed the temperament of a child even after his mind had grown up by quite a lot. Class 7 magical beasts can take on a human form. Xiaobai, can you turn into a human now? Jian Chen asked the white tiger. The white tiger completely understood Jian Chen's words, so it responded by shaking its head. Its bright little eyes were filled with confusion, clearly uncertain why it could not take a human form. Jian Chen smiled gently and said, "You're a winged tiger god, something that's on a completely different level to ordinary magical beasts. Perhaps the reason you can't take a human form is exactly because of that. Once you power up some more in the future, you'll be able to take a human form sooner or later." Jian Chen's expression changed with that as he felt that the barrier he cast down outside had been tampered with by someone. He placated the white tiger before leaving directly. Leaving the secret room, Jian Chen found a saint ruler of the turtle clan standing outside pale-faced. Jian Chen could tell with a single glance that he was quite injured. "I greet the ruler. This one has only disturbed the ruler's seclusion because this one had no other choice. Please punish me." The saint ruler knelt down immediately and said with respect. Jian Chen looked at him sternly and asked, "What has happened, and what's the reason for your injury?" "When we went to take back our crystal mines, we were met with the obstruction of powerful foes. Many members of the turtle clan has been injured, and the ancestor of the Tai Hong clan, Tai Do, has also been injured by 2 experts that were of the same cultivation level as him," the saint ruler said deeply. His complexion was horrible. Jian Chen's face sank when he heard that. How dare they? Assemble the elders and experts of the Tai Hong clan immediately in the conference hall. "Yes, ruler." Jian Chen sat expressionlessly on the throne in the conference hall, while a group of people gathered below. They all stood there quietly and no one spoke, causing the atmosphere to become rather heavy. Almost half of them were pale-faced, clearly quite injured. Jian Chen glanced past all of them and growled, "Tai Do, tell me the strength of the opponent." Tai Do stepped up and said, "Ruler, the opponent is very powerful. They are a famed clan in the territory of the Sea Goddess Hall and possess 2 16th-star experts. They are both as powerful as me, and they also possess a 15th-star expert and many 14th-star Sea Soul warriors. Their strength completely exceeds us." "All right, I understand," Jian Chen replied softly, before sitting there quietly. 3 old men walked into the hall not long afterward. They walked in with their chests high, steps in sync and unhurriedly. They did not even glance at the experts in the hall, directly ignoring them. They were the former 3 disciplinary elders of the Heaven Spirit Hall. With their entry, the people who had no idea who they were revealed gazes of suspicion, secretly trying to guess their identities. The 3 disciplinary elders walked right to the very front before stopping. They all looked at Jian Chen calmly and one of them asked, "Jian Chen, for what have you summoned the 3 of us?" The disciplinary elder spoke to Jian Chen as an equal, without displaying any forms of respect. Chapter 963. Dealing with Zhou Yunzi and Zhou Tianzi. Jian Chen stared at the 3 disciplinary elders calmly and said, "Elders, I have a mission for you. I hope that you can cooperate with the experts of the Turtle Clan in completing it." All the experts from the Turtle Clan and the Tai Hong Clan were secretly surprised when they heard that Jian Chen wanted these 3 unknown old men to help them out. Everyone could not help but attempt to sense their strength, but none of them believed that the 3 old men were actually all of the 16th star. Among all of them, only Tai Do vaguely sensed the strength of the 3 disciplinary elders as he was the only one at the 5th heavenly layer. He was only slightly weaker than the 3 elders. Tai Do could vaguely feel a slight pressure from the 3 people, which shocked him greatly. He struggled to understand where the ruler of the clan had found these 3 terrifying experts. What do you want the three of us to do? Disciplinary Elder Xian asked as usual. Jian Chen paid no attention to the attitudes of the trio and spoke to Tai Do. Tai Do, these three elders are all experts no weaker than you. Lead the three of them with haste to the clan and take back our former crystal mine forcefully. Yes, ruler. Tai Do was excited. With the help of the three elders that were stronger than him, they now possessed strength far greater than the opponent. This filled him with confidence. This time, I will definitely teach them a solid lesson and pay them back for the humiliation, Tai Do swore secretly. Lan Jing, Xian, and Mochas left the Turtle Clan with a group of experts under Tai Do's lead, making their way toward the opponent's clan in a threatening manner. Jian Chen did not re-enter the artifact space after their departure. Instead, he arrived at a beautiful mountain toward the back of the clan with 2 attendants. In the end, he stopped before a huge grave mound by a lake. The mound was extremely large and possessed a vast presence. It was 100 meters wide and 30 meters tall, while a 300 meters tall gravestone stood before it. On it were the carved words, "Grave of the Grand Elder." This was where the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan had been laid to rest. Jian Chen also became heavy-hearted after coming here. He stood before the gravestone and stared at the words in a daze. In his daze, he felt like he saw the Grand Elder's hunchbacked stature, his benevolent and concerning face. It was as if the Grand Elder was smiling at him, speaking to him silently. The Grand Elder seemed grateful. Grand Elder, Jian Chen subconsciously mumbled, while his face was filled with pain. Back then, the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan had died to save him. He had turned into his true form and trapped Zhou Tianzi, Zhou Yunzi, and Li Fengxing into his shell, resisting the fierce attacks from these 3 great experts. In the end, the Tian-level saint techniques from Zhou Tianzi and Zhou Yunzi had wiped out his soul, shattering his shell into countless pieces where even his corpse no longer existed as a whole. He had suffered such a miserable death where even Class 7 Radiant Saint Masters could not revive him. If it were not for the Grand Elder who sacrificed himself to keep the 3 experts busy, Jian Chen would not have been able to survive until the arrival of Elder Hong. After all, he possessed no strength to resist when he was first hunted down by the 3 of them. The sacrifice of the Grand Elder had touched Jian Chen deeply, striking gratitude deep into Jian Chen's heart. Other than gratitude, Jian Chen also felt ashamed of himself and deep self-blame. The Grand Elder was dead now, but Jian Chen had completely repaid the Grand Elder's gratitude and had erased his self-shame. He could still clearly remember that the will of the Grand Elder had lingered and failed to disperse even after his death. It was fixated on the future of the Turtle Clan, while Jian Chen would complete the Grand Elder's final wishes, reviving the Turtle Clan and returning it to glory. That way, he could repay the Grand Elder's kindness and allow his spirit to finally rest properly. Jian Chen stood absent-mindedly before the huge gravestone, forgetting any sense of time. The 2 attendants that had followed him here stood silently, afraid that they would disturb the esteemed ruler that they admired. A violent gust of wind blew past, causing Jian Chen's long white robes and hair to ruffle in the breeze. Unknowingly, he had already spent several days standing there. At this very moment, an expert of the Turtle Clan ran up the mountain and knelt on one knee 20 meters away. Ruler, Tai Do and the 3 elders have returned with an absolute victory. They have successfully seized back our former crystal mine. Send my order for all the clansmen and elders to gather here. Jian Chen's cold voice rang out. As the ruler wishes, the expert replied courteously, before disappearing like the wind. A deep horn rang out from the tribe far away after a short while. A great group of people hurried toward the mountain with the elders in the lead. They traveled very quickly and soon arrived before the grave of the Grand Elder. We greet the ruler. All the people knelt on one knee and called out with a deafening voice. They all moved in sync without any disorder. Jian Chen's prestige in the Turtle Clan was becoming greater and greater, now receiving the respect of everyone. Not only did the status and power of the clan increase greatly since his arrival, they were even slowly taking back their former minds. All the members of the clan believed that the time where they would return to glory had come. Jian Chen released the tied-up Zhou Tianzi and Zhou Yunzi from the Octaterra Divine Hall. As their powers had been sealed up by the Hall Elders of the Heaven Spirit Hall, they were like ordinary people with no power to resist at all. Jian Chen, why don't you hurry up and release us? We'll show you what we're made of after we break free ourselves if you don't. The two of them immediately began to yell at Jian Chen as soon as they appeared. Jian Chen stared coldly at the two of them as killing intent surged within him. He said coldly, "How can the seal personally cast down by the Hall Elders of the Heaven's Spirit Hall be broken through so easily by the two of you? Otherwise, their status would be nothing more than a name." Zhou Tianzi and Zhou Yunzi's expressions changed slightly. They glanced past the huge gravestone and their faces immediately sank. The Grand Elder had been slain by the Tian-level saint techniques they had cast, so they immediately had a general sense of what Jian Chen wanted to do by bringing them there. "Jian Chen, what exactly do you want to do to us?" Zhou Tianzi growled. Jian Chen stared at the gravestone in a daze and said hoarsely, "Blood for blood. I shall use your blood to comfort the Grand Elder's spirit." "Don't you dare, Jian Chen." The expressions of Zhou Tianzi and Zhou Yunzi changed drastically, but they continued to glare at Jian Chen. Jian Chen did not listen to the two of them anymore, turning around to the kneeling members of the Turtle Clan. "Everyone, these two people were the ones who killed the Grand Elder all those years ago. They are both 16th star experts. Today, I shall slaughter the two of them before all of you, to take revenge for the Grand Elder." Jian Chen was basically yelling out hoarsely toward the end. To take revenge for the Grand Elder. Kill the two of them and comfort the Grand Elder's spirit. All of them immediately began to call out loudly, staring at the twins in hatred. Both of their expressions changed once again. Although they were both 5th Heavenly Layer Saint Kings, their strength had been sealed up through a secret technique from the Hall Elders, causing them to become as fragile as ordinary people. They had no ability to flee at all under such circumstances. The light in Zhou Tianzi and Zhou Yunzi's eyes flickered, before they seemingly made a decision. Determination appeared in their eyes. "Jian Chen, as long as you let the two of us off, we will follow you and work for you." Jian Chen looked at the two of them sarcastically, while the Emperor armament had already appeared in his hand. He sneered, "I never thought that two of the 8 great human experts would have a time where they bow down. But you're the murderers of the Grand Elder. I won't let you off no matter what you say." Jian Chen slowly raised the Emperor armament, and it immediately began to shine with a blinding dark light. The twins began to panic. "Jian Chen, the matter all those years ago was all under the orders of the Heaven Spirit Hall. We were sent by the Hall Elders to deal with you, so your true enemy is the Heaven Spirit Hall. Even if you kill us, you won't be able to deal with them. But if you let us go, we can fight the Heaven Spirit Hall together and take revenge for the Grand Elder." The coldness in Jian Chen's eyes deepened, but he was not swayed by their words. He suddenly stabbed out with the Emperor armament, impaling the foreheads of Zhou Tianzi and Zhou Yunzi, and wiping out their souls. The twins' voices stopped, while a mixture of red and white liquids poured from the wounds. In the end, they collapsed in their own pool of blood, dying on the spot. This was how 2 5th Heavenly Layer Saint Kings were killed off on a mountain. With their deaths, the 8 great human experts of the Sea Realm became 6. Jian Chen removed their space rings before calling out hoarsely, "Come, drain their blood for the Grand Elder's spirit." Immediately, someone ran up to the two of them and created another wound on their bodies. He let the blood flow from their bodies, dyeing the area before the Grand Elder's gravestone red. Jian Chen sighed deeply after killing off the two of them. He murmured, "There's just Li Fengxing now. Beast God Continent. I will be coming sooner or later." Jian Chen paused slightly at this point and looked at the space not too far away. He spoke again, this time coldly. "Qing Yishuan, you've seen enough. It's time you came out." Chapter 964. Leaving the sea realm, Qing Yishuan gradually emerged from the space that Jian Chen had his eyes on once he finished speaking. She stared unblinkingly at Zhou Tianzi and Zhou Yunzi, who lied in the pools of blood, her eyes filled with shock and stupefaction. Zhou Tianzi and Zhou Yunzi were both among the 8 great human experts of the Sea Realm. They were as powerful as her, all 5th Heavenly Layer Saint Kings. They were all very powerful people both in the Sea Realm and on the Tianyuan continent, yet 2 of them had just been slain so easily by Jian Chen. The process was like squashing an ant, making it very difficult for Qing Yishuan to accept. Her heart churned, feeling extremely shaken. Jian Chen stared calmly at her and said nonchalantly, "Qing Yishuan, this is the important grounds of my turtle clan. What intentions do you have for intruding? Name it, or I can only chase you away personally." Jian Chen's emotion had undergone some minute changes as well due to the Grand Elder. He was no longer as polite as before. Qing Yishuan immediately became angered by Jian Chen's threatening words, but she forcefully suppressed her emotions after thinking back to when Zhou Tianzi and Zhou Yunzi had died in his hands. She sucked in a deep breath and slowly calmed down, before looking at Jian Chen with mixed emotions. I have something I want to discuss with you. Jian Chen hesitated slightly, before nodding in agreement in the end. Come with me. Jian Chen then flew off into the distance. Jian Chen and Qing Yishuan stopped 10 kilometers away. Jian Chen stood with his arms crossed and his back away from Qing Yishuan as he stared at the mountains in the distance. Speak. What do you have to discuss with me? Qing Yishuan stared at Jian Chen's back with bright eyes. I wish for you to help me deal with the Tao family. The Tao family? One of the most powerful clans in the Sea Realm, the Tao family? A sliver of surprise appeared in Jian Chen's eyes. Correct, one of the most powerful clans. The former patriarch of the clan possesses something I need very much. I wish for you to help me deal with them and assist me in obtaining that item, she said. The Tao family's a clan with quite impressive strength. I have no enmity with them, so why should I help you in offending a powerful clan for no reason? Jian Chen sneered. Qing Yishuan gnashed her teeth and said, when I tried to steal the Octaterra map fragment before, my intentions were to exchange it for the item with the former patriarch. Originally, the map fragment was already in my hands, but it was taken away by you with your despicable methods, wasting all my efforts. You even used it to enter the Divine Hall and benefited drastically from it. Not only did you obtain an Emperor armament, the Divine Hall even ended up in your hands. The reason why you could obtain all those and possess your current strength is partially due to me. I have the power to fight off 7th Heavenly Layer Saint Kings with the Emperor armament in hand, and anyone below Saint Emperor cannot harm me with the protection of the Octaterra Divine Hall. I now possess the strength to contend with the 10 Protector clans, so it's about time I return, Jian Chen mumbled in a garden. His eyes were filled with recollection. Now that I'm a Class 7 Radiant Saint Master, I can revive the dead. Mother and father's bodies are still at Mercenary City, waiting for me to revive them. Additionally, Xiaobai's mother, Rum Guinness, needs my abilities as a Class 7 Radiant Saint Master to heal her. Sighs. It's about time now. So many years have passed. I wonder how the Flame Mercenaries are right now. It must have grown much more powerful than before under the management of Yu and Lianer, and the construction of Flame City should be complete by now. I wonder how big of a disturbance the completion of the city has made on the continent. Jian Chen murmured to himself as he paced around the garden. The yearning in his eyes became deeper and deeper, reaching a level where he struggled to suppress it. 3 days later, Jian Chen left the clan after handing over some matters. Xian Pian, Lan Jing, and Mokas did not go with him, staying behind under his request to guard the clan against any experts that came for revenge. Jian Chen flew vertically upward in excitement, reaching the barrier of the Sea Realm very quickly. He was about to cross it. Jian Chen, remember to find a new host for the orb in the given time. When the worldly ebb arrives, you must return to the Sea Realm. The Sea Goddess voice suddenly rang out. In the faint blue barrier before him, the Sea Goddess figure suddenly appeared. She seemed to be completely part of the barrier, only appearing as a blurry figure. Jian Chen nodded sternly and said, "Do not worry, Your Majesty. I will definitely complete your request." The Sea Goddess continued, "Jian Chen, if you come across any opponents you cannot defeat on the continent, go to Mercenary City. The barrier of Mercenary City is extremely powerful. It can help you block enemies you cannot defeat." Jian Chen was secretly shocked when he heard that. He could not help but think of Xiao Ling's naive face. He really struggled to believe that such a mischievous little girl would actually be so powerful, where she could block enemies he could not defeat. Looks like Xiao Ling is at least a Saint Emperor, Jian Chen thought. Jian Chen flew through the barrier and immediately became submerged in the icy cold seawater. Without any hesitation, he shot upward like an arrow toward the surface of the sea. It was a cloudless sky, deep blue in color. The golden sun shone with a dazzling bright light that illuminated the world. The surface of the sea was calm, while the deep blue sea fused with the sky at the horizon. It seemed like they were one whole piece, making it impossible to see the end of it. At this very moment, a ripple appeared in the calm sea. After that, the water suddenly exploded, creating a huge splash in all directions that seemed like the blooming of a water-blue flower. A figure emerged from the center of the flow with lightning speed. He reached an altitude of several thousand meters in a slight moment, becoming a black speck smaller than an ant. The figure was Jian Chen. He floated at the high altitude as he slowly closed his eyes and spread open his arms. He laid there with an intoxicated expression, letting the warm sunlight shine on his body. "It's been quite some time since I've been able to feel the warmth of the sun," Jian Chen murmured. His voice was filled with excitement that he struggled to hide. Chapter 965. Return to Three Saint Island in the sky above the sea realm. Jian Chen slowly calmed himself down. A golden streak of light shot out from the center of his eyebrows, falling into his hand as a golden tower. A white light shot out from it. The cat-sized Xiaobai had been let out of the artifact space, appearing before Jian Chen. After spending 5 years in the artifact space, the white tiger was naturally extremely excited about finally leaving the place. It immediately began to purr excitedly, flying around with its wings in high spirits. It constantly flew around Jian Chen. Jian Chen was also unknowingly affected by the white tiger's happiness. He could not help but reveal a smile from the bottom of his heart. The white tiger played enough before finally returning to Jian Chen's shoulder. Its bright and naive eyes were filled with curiosity as they constantly looked around. It would leap from shoulder to shoulder from time to time. Previously, Jian Chen could only send the white tiger into the artifact space to protect it after its identity had been revealed. Now, Jian Chen was much stronger. No longer the weakling before. He could now protect himself and the white tiger, so there was no longer any need to keep the white tiger in the artifact space like before. The white tiger had already become a Class 7 magical beast as well. As a beast god, its battle prowess was far greater than beasts of antiquity too. As such, it possessed the strength to protect itself as well. There would be very few people among all the saint rulers that could threaten it now. Jian Chen allowed the white tiger to play around on his shoulders. He gained his bearings using the sun in the sky before fusing with the surrounding space, shooting off toward the Tianyuan continent through the use of spatial force. Ripping open a space gate was an ability only Saint Kings possessed. Although Jian Chen now had the battle prowess of a 7th heavenly layer Saint King, his comprehension of the mysteries of the world was just too low. The only reason his comprehension was at the 7th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler now was due to devouring the Blood Demon Emperor's soul. As such, he still had quite the distance from Saint King in terms of comprehension. This meant that Jian Chen could not form space gates despite his strength. The sky and sea seemed to fuse as one, making it completely disorientating. Jian Chen borrowed the sun to find his directions, allowing him to move at high speeds over the ocean. After 2 days of travel, a large island appeared in Jian Chen's view. Even though it was very far away, Jian Chen could read the stone tablet that clearly stood on the island. 3 words were carved finely into it. Three Saint Island. Unknowingly, he had already arrived at Three Saint Island. Jian Chen could not help but think of the heavenly enchantress supreme beauty the moment he saw the island, as well as everything that had once happened between the two of them in the Fantasy Star Island. These memories flashed through his head like a dream. Jian Chen subconsciously slowed down and involuntarily landed on the island before he entered a forest by foot. There was a city on Three Saint Island where the native fishermen lived. As Jian Chen walked into the city, he admired the unique local customs and practices compared to the Tianyuan continent. All the people that lived on Three Saint Island fished as their primary occupation, so almost all of them were skilled at fishing. At the same time, there were quite a few fighters, ranging from the weakest fighter who had not even condensed their saint weapons to powerful earth saint masters. The people on the island virtually lived a half-hermit life. They knew about the Tianyuan continent and had seen some people from the continent, but they have never gone there. This was because the distance between the two was just too great. Even Heaven Saint Masters would find it difficult to traverse, because they could lose their sense of direction even if they lost focus for just a moment. As a result, the disputes of the Tianyuan continent were not able to infect Three Saint Island, allowing all the people who lived here to maintain some simplicity and honesty. Each and every one of them would bear naive and happy smiles. As a foreigner, Jian Chen was immediately noticed by the natives as he entered the city. He immediately became surrounded by young men around his age that warmly greeted him. They bombarded him with questions. These young men were not strong. The most powerful had only just become a great saint, but Jian Chen did not act arrogantly. He smiled as he conversed with them, mentioning quite a few matters about the Tian-Yuan continent. Since you're from the Tian-Yuan continent, you must have the strength needed to cross the sea. You must be a Heaven Saint Master, right? Whoa, Heaven Saint Master. That's like equal to a few elders on the island. You don't seem very old, but you've already reached such a level of cultivation. We really do admire you. The young men gathered around Jian Chen as they chattered. At this moment, Jian Chen spoke out. You've asked me so many questions. Shouldn't it be my turn to ask now? Ask as many as you want, brother. As long as we know it, we will definitely not hide it from you. A young man patted his chest as he said. I want to know about the accomplishments of your island mistress, Jian Chen asked casually, but he was looking toward Three Saint Island in the distance. The young men's eyes lit up when they heard him mention the hall mistress. They immediately began to take turns in describing the island mistress' accomplishments. All of them struggled to hide the respect in their eyes. It originated from the bottom of their hearts. Jian Chen gained an even better understanding regarding the heavenly enchantress passed from them. When he had learned everything the young men knew, he bid farewell to them, and directly flew toward Three Saint Mountain. Jian Chen did not erase his presence after making his way to the mountain. A powerful presence radiated from him, but it was only at the level of Saint Ruler. Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu both stopped cultivating and came out of their dwellings on the mountain when they sensed that arrival of a Saint Ruler. They recognized Jian Chen from afar and called out. So it's Master Jian Chen who has suddenly come to visit. Jian Chen clasped his hands toward the two of them as he smiled and said, I've come out of the blue. If I have caused any disturbances, please forgive me. Master Jian Chen doesn't need to be so polite. Please come in. Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu did not treat Jian Chen as an outsider at all. They were very friendly. Jian Chen followed the two of them into the mountain. After conversing a little, he expanded his presence and encased the entire mountain. However, he failed to find the heavenly enchantress traces, so he asked, Miss Xiao Qian, Miss Xiao Qing, may I ask where your master is right now? Master has already been in seclusion for several years. If Master Jian Chen has come looking for Master, you may have to leave disappointed, said Xiao Qian. Seclusion. Jian Chen furrowed his eyebrows. He had scanned through the place where the heavenly enchantress planned to go into seclusion before, but he did not find her there. Perhaps the heavenly enchantress hasn't entered seclusion on the island and has gone elsewhere? Jian Chen thought. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed at this very moment. He suddenly raised his head toward the distance and saw a white-dressed girl standing afar with a zither in her hands. She stared at Jian Chen in a daze. The girl was extremely pretty, seemingly able to outshine the moon. She possessed a rare beauty in the world. She was not very old, only around 20 years old it seemed. She appeared to be extremely gentle and quiet, possessing a natural sense of nobility due to her upbringing. Miss Qin Qin. Jian Chen subconsciously called out as he stared at the girl in shock and disbelief. This was the first time he had seen Qin Qin's appearance, but with his familiarity with her, he could naturally distinguish her at first glance. She was the young lady of the Tianqin clan. Qin Qin slowly walked over with her zither in her hands as she stared unblinkingly at Jian Chen. Her eyes were filled with mixed emotions. Master Jian Chen, I'd never thought you'd recognize me. It is my honor. Miss Qin Qin, weren't you with the Tianqin clan on the Tian-Yuan continent? Why have you suddenly appeared here? Jian Chen asked in surprise. I've already taken the heavenly enchantress as my master. Master brought me here, said Qin Qin. Her voice was soft and filled with femininity. Miss Qin Qin's comprehension of the zither is very high. It truly is a joyous matter for you to be able to become a disciple of the heavenly enchantress, said Jian Chen with a smile. He felt happy for her from the bottom of his heart, but the only thing that caused him to worry was her gaze toward him. Jian Chen had stopped being dense long ago. He could tell Qin Qin's crush on him, which caused his anguish. Jian Chen sighed gently inside, no longer wanting to consider these annoying matters. He pulled out a piece of jade from his space ring and said, Miss Qin Qin, the island is very far away from the Tian-Yuan continent, and the heavenly enchantress also goes into seclusion often. If you want to visit home, just crush this piece of jade. I will hurry over at top speed to take you back so you can visit your home. Thank you, Master Jian Chen. Qin revealed a sweet smile on her face. She extended her soft white hand to accept the piece of jade from Jian Chen, holding it in her hand like a piece of treasure. It's about time I return to the Tian Yuan continent. Miss Qin, Miss Xiao Qian, and Miss Xiaoyu, hopefully, we will see each other some other time. Jian Chen yearned for his family and had no interest in staying very long on the island. As a result, he immediately bid farewell to the three girls. Hearing how Jian Chen wanted to leave for the Tian Yuan continent, Qin immediately began to panic. Master Jian Chen, you can't return to the Tian Yuan continent. There are people looking for you everywhere right now. They want to take the winged tiger god. She could not help but glance at the lazy white tiger on Jian Chen's shoulder as she said that. Jian Chen smiled and replied, "Don't worry, they won't dare to do anything to me." Jian Chen bid farewell to the three girls, before immediately leaving the island and flying toward the Tian Yuan continent. Chapter 966. Fury 3 Saint Island was extremely far away from the Tian Yuan continent. With Jian Chen's speed, he had to travel for almost 10 days before finally leaving the ocean, arriving at shore. However, he did not stop at all, continuing his way into the continent. As he traveled, Jian Chen would come across merchants and mercenaries when he stopped to ask for the way. However, he learned nothing other than the fact that he was currently in a small kingdom. Perhaps due to the distance or their limited knowledge and experience, they had not even heard of the 8 great kingdoms of the Tian Yuan continent. As a result, asking for the location of the Jessin kingdom from them was impossible. Jian Chen traveled for another 4 hours before stopping in a very busy king city within a kingdom. The Tian Yuan continent was just too expansive, with an innumerable amount of kingdoms. He needed to find a map that allowed him to find the whereabouts of the Jessin kingdom. Jian Chen expanded his presence, encasing the entire city. In the end, he made his way toward the largest general store at the center. Jian Chen conversed with the shopkeeper, before leaving the place with a map that recorded the Qin Huang kingdom. It was the most detailed map in the store. Although it did not have the Jessin kingdom, it was more than enough for Jian Chen, as once he made his way to the Qin Huang kingdom, he could use their space gate to travel to the Jessin kingdom. As soon as he returned to the streets after buying the map, quite a large mercenary group passed by. The middle-aged men at the very front rode Class 4 magical beasts as they conversed. I heard the Extinguishing Mercenaries Alliance is currently mass recruiting over the entire continent. Looks like it's true that they want to become the greatest mercenary group on the continent. A middle-aged burly and bare-chested man said. A person clad in red armor beside him smiled disdainfully when he heard that. He replied, "They sure are ambitious if they want to become the greatest mercenary group. The continent is so big. Just how far do you think they can extend their tendrils just as a mercenary group? Do they really think they're mercenary city? You better believe it, the Extinguishing Alliance is far greater than you can possibly imagine. It's said that they have a Saint King supporting them, so they're very powerful. I even heard that they had invited their supporting Saint King to personally move out for them, casting down several dozen space gates in Extinguished City so that they can go anywhere on the continent," said the bare-chested man. "Space gates? What are those?" The mercenaries of similar ages around the man all stuck their heads into the conversation as they asked out of curiosity. The burly man lowered his head in thought. Then he said with some uncertainty, "I don't know what space gates are either, but I heard from other people that it seems to be an ability that can send people anywhere on the Tian Yuan continent. Additionally, only Saint Kings can use it." The mercenaries on their Class 4 magical beasts all became shocked when they heard that. The red-armored man sighed and said, "If they really do have an ability that allows them to send anyone anywhere on the Tian Yuan continent, it's not impossible for them to become the greatest mercenary group. Of course. Don't forget that they're in possession of the only city completely made of tungsten alloy in the entire history of the continent. Just the city is enough to contend with the 7 capitals. Extinguished City has already taken up the nickname of the 8th capital," the bare-chested man said enviously. Jian Chen immediately stopped as he heard that when he walked past them. A sliver of curiosity appeared in his eyes as he mumbled, "What is this Extinguishing Alliance, to take the only tungsten alloy city on the entire continent? Weird. Wasn't the first city of tungsten allow going to be the flame city of our flame mercenaries? Why is there another city now? And why have I never heard of its name? Wait a second, extinguishing. Jian Chen seemed to think of something. A light gradually began to shine in his eyes, and with a slight movement, he disappeared from where he stood. The Extinguishing Alliance. The bare-chested man continued to chatter to his companions about the information he had recently learned of. However, he saw a blur flash past his eyes just as he was about to continue. A white-robed young man had suddenly appeared before him. The young man stood with stability on the magical beast mount as he stared down at him. He said with a deep voice, "Tell me, what type of mercenary group are the Extinguishing Mercenaries? How did they take the first city completely made of tungsten alloy on the continent?" The man possessed a rash personality and also had some background in the region. He immediately became enraged when he saw that someone dared to stand on his mount and speak to him like that. He slapped the back of the beast heavily and abruptly rose up, standing on the beast just like Jian Chen. He roared out, "How dare dash!" However, he suddenly felt his neck tighten the moment he said those two words. The young man had already grabbed him by the neck with lightning speed, causing breathing to become difficult for him. He felt like he was suffocating. The man tried to resist with his hands, but as soon as he tried to move, he discovered in horror that the space around him had already frozen. It locked his entire body in place, to the point where he could not even move a finger. The sudden occurrence immediately caused the man to become terrified, as he had never experienced the might of a saint ruler. His burning rage had been put out in that moment and was now replaced by fear. Right now, no matter how ignorant he was, he knew that this young man was not someone he could offend. "Who the hell are you to attack the people of our venomous snake mercenaries? Give up your life." The man's companions all reacted by stabbing their saint weapons at Jian Chen. "Piss off!" Jian Chen bellowed. Immediately, a vast aura exploded from his body, forming a powerful force that knocked them away. They were all Earth Saint Masters, so they were knocked flying by Jian Chen's aura without any ability to resist. They fell on the streets, all vomiting blood. They were heavily injured. Jian Chen glared at the man and loosened his grip on the man's neck. He growled, "Tell me, just where does this Extinguishing Alliance originate from? Where is the tungsten alloy city that they inhabit?" The man had personally witnessed his companions being knocked flying just by his aura alone and was immediately frightened. It was so bad that he almost fainted. He knew extremely well that even Heaven Saint Masters could not do this, injuring a bunch of Earth Saint Masters so easily. Also, only Saint Rulers were rumored to be able to freeze space. Recovering his ability to talk, the man no longer dared to be brutish. He had guessed Jian Chen's strength, which caused him to be overwhelmed by fear. He immediately knelt down and began to plead, "Senior, please spare my life, please spare my life. This one is blind and did not see the arrival of Senior. I've offended Senior. Please be magnanimous, Senior. Please spare this one's life." Jian Chen's face sank and said deeply, "Answer my question." "Yes, yes, yes. This one will answer immediately, at once." This one does not know the exact origins of this Extinguishing Alliance because this one heard it from rumors as well. However, the extinguished city that they inhabit is extremely far away from here. This does not know exactly how far away it is either, but it's relatively closer to the Qin Huang Kingdom, the man said hurriedly. "Closer to the Qin Huang Kingdom," Jian Chen murmured as his heart shivered. A sudden ill premonition began to strengthen in his heart. "Do you know about the Flame Mercenaries?" Jian Chen asked. I know. Of course I know. There's basically no mercenary on the continent who doesn't know the Flame Mercenaries. It's said that Extinguished City was originally constructed by them, but just as it had been completed, it was suddenly taken away by the Extinguishing Alliance. The man told Jian Chen everything he knew. Jian Chen suddenly became stunned and rather lifeless. That final sentence from the man echoed in his head as he struggled to accept it. Taken away. The tungsten alloy city that they built after so many hardships has actually been taken away. No, this is impossible. How did it end up like this? How? In that moment, Jian Chen seemed to become lifeless. Deep anguish filled his face. Suddenly, Yu, Bai Lian, and the others flashed through Jian Chen's head, causing his expression to change drastically. He immediately used his arm to grab the man and bellowed, "What happened to the people of the Flame Mercenaries in the end? Speak. What happened?" Jian Chen's voice was filled with urgency. Before, the 10 protector clans had been searching for him everywhere. He feared that the flame mercenaries would be pulled into this matter or even harmed. Before he had left, he had once asked Tianjian to look after the mercenaries for him. Now that the city had been taken, even Tianjian was unable to prevent it. This had basically confirmed for Jian Chen that the 10 protector clans had interfered. I don't know. I really don't know. I just know that they were chased out, but I don't know what happened because I haven't heard about it at all. The man was absolutely frightened, where even his voice began to tremble. Jian Chen slowly released the man. He was sandwiched between sorrow and fury, with deep worry in between. However, in the next moment, it was all replaced by a tremendous killing intent. Chapter 967. Monstrous killing intent. Jian Chen remained standing on the Class 4 magical beast, but it had already collapsed from terror. It trembled on the ground as fear flooded its eyes. A powerful killing intent uncontrollably radiated from Jian Chen's body, surging directly toward the skies. The surrounding clouds and even the wind changed as a result. It was to the point where even the sun seemed to dull. It did not seem to be able to match up against the killing intent from Jian Chen. Jian Chen was currently in a king city, as well as the imperial city of the kingdom. There was a beautiful palace a short distance from the city walls, and the eyes of several old men who were cultivating inside snapped open. They stared in the direction in shock as they emerged from the palace. They were all extremely grim. The old men were all the peak-level experts of the kingdom and were all Heaven Saint Masters. What a vast presence and powerful killing intent. It's enough to even make me tremble inside. It's impossible for Heaven Saint Masters to have such a powerful presence. The owner of it must be a saint ruler, an old man said hoarsely. Other Heaven Saint Masters ran over from afar. One of them growled, "There's a saint ruler that has come to our city, and it seems like he has been irritated by someone. Let's quickly go have a look." Several Heaven Saint Masters immediately flew toward Jian Chen's direction. At the same time, a ruddy old man sat with his legs crossed. He was cultivating in a quiet wooden hut several kilometers away from the city on a mountain. The space around him produced visible ripples slowly, while the old man's body seemed to become one with the surroundings. This old man was a saint ruler. Suddenly, the old man's eyes snapped open. With a movement of his body, he immediately left the wooden hut, reappearing several meters away on a mountaintop. He cast his gaze far sternly as deep shock filled his misty eyes. He said with his trembling old voice, "What a powerful presence and terrifying killing intent. This is a saint king. Why has a supreme saint king come to such a rural area, and why are they radiating with such terrifying killing intent? Has someone aggravated him? No, I need to go have a look." The old man fused with the surrounding space, shooting off as a faint blur. Within the city, Jian Chen's fists were already tightly clenched. He gnashed his teeth and said, "The Extinguishing Alliance actually dares to take my flame city and chase away my flame mercenaries. It matters not who's behind you. I will not forgive you." At this moment, the Heaven Saint Masters flew over from within the palace. They stopped 100 meters away from Jian Chen as they stared at him anxiously. After some slight deliberation, someone finally stepped out and clasped his hands and said, "Senior, we are the Imperial Advisors of the Alma Kingdom. May we ask what has aggravated Senior? If there is anything we can help you with, we are extremely willing." The Imperial Advisors were extremely polite as they were afraid of offending Jian Chen. Jian Chen paid no attention to them and instead stared off into the distance. His eyes were completely bloodshot, possessing his residual fury and killing intent that he had yet to disperse. A figure flew over like a bolt of lightning where Jian Chen stared, arriving before him in the blink of an eye. To no surprise, it was the old man who had been cultivating in the mountains. The faces of the Imperial Advisors immediately lit up when they saw the arrival of the old man. They all bowed politely and said, "We greet the Imperial Protector." The old man referred to as the Imperial Protector paid no attention to them and secretly examined Jian Chen. He was shocked inside, because under Jian Chen's gaze, he felt like his body had been impaled by 2 swords. He felt a slight aching pain. When he faced Jian Chen, he felt like he was not facing a person, but an unscalable mountain. He felt like he was as weak as an ant, pressuring him greatly. He sure is a saint king. So strong as expected, the old man thought. However, he maintained his polite appearance, bowing deeply toward Jian Chen. He said courteously, "Yen Zenan greets Senior. May I inquire what is making Senior so furious? If there is anything Senior needs, I am willing to do everything I can." The imperial advisors were greatly shocked when they saw the esteemed saint ruler imperial protector treat Jian Chen so courteously, and even refer to him as Senior. Their gazes toward Jian Chen also underwent an overwhelming change. Perhaps this person is not a saint ruler but a saint king? In that moment, similar thoughts appeared in the heads of the heaven saint masters at the same time. Their minds immediately fell into turmoil, drowned by astoundment. "Where is the closest space gate?" Jian Chen glared at Yen Zenan as he asked in a deep voice. A sliver of suspicion flashed through Yen Zenan's eyes when he heard that, but he did not dare to poke his nose into the matter. He said courteously, "Senior, probably only the ancient clan in the White Phoenix Mountain Range, the Kago clan, has a space gate in the surrounding radius of several 100,000 kilometers. Where is the White Phoenix Mountain Range?" Jian Chen followed up. 500,000 kilometers to the west, said Yen Zenan, hiding nothing. Jian Chen shot off like a cannonball as soon as he finished speaking, shooting off toward the west. He was currently extremely far away from the Qin Huang kingdom, so it would take quite some time if he flew. Jian Chen no longer dared to travel slowly after learning about what had happened to Flame City. He currently only wanted to find a space gate and quickly return to the Jessen kingdom. That way, he could save quite a lot of time. Although Newbies was a Saint King and could rip open a space gate, he was currently working hard on studying the Saint Tier battle skill from the Sea Realm. He had even reached a crucial part of it. As a result, Jian Chen did not disturb him over this small matter, just in case it would end up wasting all his prior efforts. An ancient mountain range existed several 100,000 kilometers from the Amma kingdom. Many magical beasts existed there, with no lack of Class 6 ones. It was a prime hunting location for many mercenary groups. In the depths of the mountain range was a region enshrouded by poisonous gas. The poisonous gas never dispersed and was extremely powerful, so even Heaven Saint Masters did not dare to venture deeply into it. Around the perimeter of the gas lived several powerful Class 6 magical beasts. In the countless years it had existed, many Heaven Saint Masters had tried investigating the depths, but in the very end, they all emerged heavily injured or died inside. After some time, the region of the poisonous gas became labeled as a death zone. Hidden inside the gas was a huge manor that barely anyone knew about. It was encased by a powerful barrier and countless buildings stood within it. Many simply dressed people could be clearly seen as they constantly moved about inside. This was where the Kagu clan existed, while the mountain range was called the White Phoenix Mountain Range. At this very moment, the poisonous gas outside began to ripple. A black sword chi seemed to descend from outer space, cutting through the poisonous gas and striking the barrier forcefully. Boom! The peace of the Kagu clan was broken, and the barrier cast down by the Saint King of the clan was immediately broken. It failed to resist the powerful the sword chi. The sudden occurrence alerted all the people inside the clan. In that moment, the eyes of the experts in secluded cultivation within the clan all snapped open. They shot into the air as they radiated with a tremendous presence. They all stared grimly at the barrier that had disappeared completely. "Who has come? My Kagu clan may have failed to welcome you from afar, but there's no need to break my clan's barrier." An old voice boomed in the surroundings. It was extremely powerful and forceful, reverberating in the surroundings. With the voice, a tremendous presence suddenly appeared. It enveloped the surrounding region. A wrinkly old man slowly floated in the sky. He was one of the two ancestors of the clan, Ku Nan. At the same time, another old man slowly rose into the sky as he radiated with a great presence from another area of the manor. He was the other ancestor of the Kagu clan, Ku Bei. The two Saint Kings were furious as they raised their heads to take a look. In the surging poisonous gas, a white-robed young man slowly descended with a long sword in his hand. His face was cold as dense killing intent flickered in his eyes. Chapter 968. Returning to Qin Huang Kingdom, the expressions of the two Saint Kings of the Kagu clan both darkened. In their opinion, Jian Chen was clearly a Saint King. He had the power to rip open a space gate, yet he just had to borrow the Kagu clan's one. This was a straightforward provocation. The Kegu clan was an ancient clan with 2 saint kings protecting it, so how could they endure such an insult? Kunan and Kubei immediately became furious and roared, "Sir, are you looking down on us? Since you want to humiliate our clan like this, allow the 2 of us to observe your strength. Let's see just what you are capable of to be able to look down on us." Jian Chen immediately frowned when he heard that. He had come to the Kegu clan purely to borrow their space gate. He had never thought that such a simple matter would cause misunderstandings. Without giving Jian Chen any time to explain, the 2 saint kings both rose and charged toward Jian Chen as they radiated with vast energy ripples. Huge, palm-width swords had already appeared in their hands. They swung the swords directly at Jian Chen. The space on the Tianyuan continent was not as tough as the Sea Realm. With just the strokes of these swords, the space was shattered, revealing a patch of darkness. However, Kunan and Kubei remained unaffected. The saint weapons in their hands shone with a blinding light, stabbing through the shattered space toward Jian Chen. Kubei and Kunan were 2nd and 3rd heavenly layer saint kings respectively. Although they were great experts on the continent, they were not worth any attention from Jian Chen. Just the toughness of his chaotic body at the 3rd layer was enough to resist attacks from 3rd heavenly layer saint kings without any harm. Jian Chen remained as cold as before. His arm shook violently and the emperor armament in his hand stabbed out as a dark streak of light. Ding ding! The emperor armament collided with the 2 saint weapons with 2 crisp sounds. The air trembled without stop as a violent storm of energy whipped out. In the moment the emperor armament collided with their weapons, Kunan and Kubei immediately felt an irresistible force. Not only did it shake their arms until they became numb, a powerful force traveled up their limbs and into their bodies. It shook up their inner organs violently, causing the air to become a bloody mist. Kubei and Kunan shot backward out of control, only stabilizing themselves after traveling 10 whole kilometers. They immediately became overwhelmed with shock. They both understood that if Jian Chen's attack was slightly more powerful, they would definitely become extremely heavily injured. However, Jian Chen seemed at ease, as if he had not struck out with his full strength. "Sir, who are you? How has my clan offended you? Why must you make it difficult for us?" Kunan asked gruffly. He became extremely stern. "I only want to borrow your space gate. I have no problem with your clan," said Jian Chen. "Humph, you're a saint king and you're much stronger than us. You can just rip open a space gate, yet you just have to make trouble and come use our clan's space gate. Aren't you intentionally trying to make fun of my clan?" Hebei said darkly. Jian Chen could not be bothered with explanations. "If you let me borrow your space gate, I'll leave immediately. Are you going to let me borrow it or not? If you're not going to, then I'll use it anyway." Jian Chen's voice was cold, but it was also filled with a powerful confidence. It was like he did not view the 2 saint kings as anything at all. The current Jian Chen was worlds apart from the Jian Chen of years ago. Back then, he had no power to resist at all when he went up against organizations like ancient clans, but now, he could completely look down on them or even threaten them. In this world, only those with strength would be respected. There were no principles to argue over, no concept of fair or any difference between right and wrong. It all depended on one thing, and that was strength. Strength that could make opponents fear or even dread. The 2 saint kings reacted by changing an expression multiple times. Faced with Jian Chen's threatening words, they could actually do nothing. The opponent was powerful, strong enough to look down on the 2 of them or even flip their Kegu clan upside down. "All right. Since you want to use our space gate, please come with us." The 2 saint kings finally gave in. They could do nothing whether the opponent was trying to provoke them or if he truly wanted to use the space gate. All they could do was bring him to the location of the space gate under Jian Chen's request. Jian Chen casually followed behind the 2 saint kings under the gazes of countless clansmen as he swaggered to the space gate's location. Afterward, it was personally activated by Kubei and Kunan. Seeing how Jian Chen really did plan on using the space gate and did not come looking for trouble, the 2 of them could not help but secretly sigh a breath of relief. Kubei asked expressionlessly, "May I ask where you want us to lock on the space gate?" "Qinhuang Kingdom of the 8 Great Kingdoms," said Jian Chen. The space gate quickly locked onto the Qinhuang Kingdom, and Jian Chen then directly crossed through the space gate under the gazes of the 2 saint kings. With Jian Chen's departure, the 2 of them quickly closed the space gate and sighed a great breath of relief inside. They had finally sent away an annoying opponent. Jian Chen directly arrived at the Qin Huang Kingdom through the space gate. After determining his location, he directly flew toward the imperial palace of the kingdom, disappearing in the blink of an eye. He was extremely fast. It was peaceful in the imperial palace, and groups of elite, armored guards patrolled the surroundings in an orderly fashion. Never did he even consider that the owner of the powerful presence was Jian Chen, who had gone missing for several years. Imperial Protector Jian Chen, why is it you, Jian Chen? Have you already become a Saint King in just those few short years? Jian Chen, are you a Saint Ruler or Saint King right now? The other three Imperial Protectors all called out together. All of them stared at Jian Chen in disbelief. They could naturally feel the tremendous presence from Jian Chen. As they currently faced him, they could actually feel an invisible pressure that implanted the thought of defeat in their minds. Naturally, only Saint Kings could make them feel like that. However, they just struggled to believe that Jian Chen had broken through Saint Ruler so quickly to become a Saint King. Chapter 969. Fighting the Extinguishing Alliance. 4 Imperial Protectors. I have urgent matters that require the use of the space gate. We can catch up some other time, Jian Chen said calmly. Although he should be very happy about returning to his homeland, the Tianyuan continent, whatever happened to the flame mercenaries made it very difficult for him. Qin Yunlong sucked in a deep breath and slowly calmed himself down. At that moment, his gaze toward Jian Chen underwent a complete change, and he said, Jian Chen, are you referring to the matter of the flame mercenaries? Jian Chen nodded and asked, just what has happened to the mercenaries? They were just fine, so why did they get chased away and have Flame City taken away? Who's the person behind this extinguishing alliance? It is one of the 8 princes of the Felicity Empire, Bai Jian, said Qin Yunlong. Bai Jian. So it's him. The killing intent exploded in Jian Chen's eyes. It was extremely terrifying. Then, how are the flame mercenaries right now? Jian Chen followed up. Qin Yunlong sighed gently as he replied, the flame mercenaries have basically dispersed. A portion have run off by themselves, another part has joined the Extinguishing Alliance, while the remaining went to the Jessen Kingdom. Your group of friends are all fine. They were taken away by a Saint King from a protector clan. Jian Chen could not help but sigh in relief when he heard that you and the others were fine. However, the killing intent in his eyes remained just as terrifying. He gnashed his teeth and said, I want to borrow the space gate to go to Flame City. I'd like to see just what the Extinguishing Alliance can do for taking my Flame City. Afterward, Jian Chen arrived at the space gate under the accompaniment of the 4 Imperial Protectors. He passed through it and traveled to Flame City. With Jian Chen's departure, the 4 Imperial Protectors stood there in a daze. Shocked lights flickered through their eyes, while a group of Heaven Saint Master Imperial advisors gathered around them. Weird. Has Jian Chen reached Saint King or not? His presence is definitely at the level of Saint Kings, but why does he need to use our space gate? An Imperial Protector asked doubtfully. The 3 other Imperial Protectors nodded in agreement when they heard that. They all found it extremely strange. The Imperial advisors around them were all astounded when they heard the words of the Protectors. Stupefaction shone through their eyes, and at that very moment, all of them seemed to doubt what they had heard. The Imperial Protector Jian Chen had only just reached Heaven Saint Master a few years ago, yet he was now a Saint King. They struggled to believe this. Meanwhile, Jian Chen had no idea just how much he had shocked the people of the Qin Huang Kingdom. He had arrived 10 kilometers from Extinguished City. From afar, Jian Chen saw the grandiose and extravagant dark city walls. They stood like a coiled dragon, radiating with an invisible pressure that shocked the souls of people. The city gates were wide open as large numbers of people in the attire of mercenaries poured in and out of the city. Some traveled by foot, while others rode magical beasts. It left behind thickly packed footprints on the ground below. The current Extinguished City was bustling. Not only did several million people live within its walls, stores also filled the city. The noise and commotion on the streets were very great, filling the city with life. Jian Chen slowly looked upward and stopped on the 2 words on the plaque that hung on the walls. Extinguished City. Killing intent immediately began to churn within him, leaking out of his body uncontrollably. It surged directly toward the sky. The city before him, completely constructed from tungsten alloy, belonged to the flame mercenaries. The people that settled down in the city and the flags on its walls should have belonged to the flame mercenaries as well. However, everything had changed. It was all someone else's now. Jian Chen struggled to keep his fury suppressed when he thought about how the city that the flame mercenaries had poured a countless amount of wealth and energy to construct was now taken over by someone else. The flame mercenaries had to overcome many hardships to create this city. Arg! Jian Chen roared at the sky. It was thunderous, exploding in the sky. Just the sound was enough to pass through rock. Not only did it disperse the clouds in the sky, it caused the entire city to begin trembling gently, resulting in a thick layer of dust being kicked into the air. The guards of the Extinguishing Alliance on the city walls all covered their ears tightly as they tossed and turned on the floor in agony. The terrifying roar was ear-piercing to all of them, and caused a trail of blood to flow from their ears. Countless people within the city walls were affected as well. The eardrums of several million weaker people were destroyed by the roar, causing agony to all of them. Some of them had even fainted directly. In the blink of an eye, the city fell into chaos. The streets became filled with people lying on the ground. Just Jian Chen's roar was enough to incapacitate millions of people from the Alliance. The number of people injured was innumerable. This was the might of a Saint King. Roar! At the same time, a deafening tiger roar rang out. It was filled with a tremendous might, like the descent of an overlord that could look down on everyone. The white tiger on Jian Chen's shoulders had stood up suddenly as well. It roared at the sky, imitating Jian Chen. It produced a sound that did not match up to its size at all. Although it was nowhere near as loud as Jian Chen, its roar seemed to contain a level of deterrence that Jian Chen's did not possess. It was filled with a supreme awe, something that could not be trespassed upon. Countless magical beasts began to mourn miserably inside the city. All of them collapsed onto the ground as they trembled, fear flooding their eyes. The weaker mercenaries that managed to stay conscious despite Jian Chen's roar were all knocked unconscious by the tiger's roar. Over 20 vast presences appeared in the palace at the very center of the city. The saint rulers cultivating within it had all been alarmed, immediately flying outside. The Extinguishing Alliance was formed from over 10 peak-level mercenary groups, while the saint rulers were all former captains from those groups. The saint rulers arrived at the city gates with lightning speed. They looked toward Jian Chen, who stood high up in the air. They all became extremely stern. With their current cultivation level, they could naturally sense Jian Chen's strength. The tremendous aura from Jian Chen caused them to shudder in fear. They all understood that the person before them was a Saint King. However, they had never seen Jian Chen. Even though they had heard of him, they failed to recognize him immediately. May I ask the senior's name? Why must senior make it hard for the Extinguishing Alliance? Our alliance doesn't seem to have offended senior before, a saint ruler asked carefully. Killing intent sprouted from Jian Chen as he coldly stared at the saint rulers. He bellowed, "You take my city and you chase away my flame mercenaries. Who do you think I am?" The saint rulers all reacted violently when they heard this. Someone immediately reached an understanding and cried out, "You're the captain of the flame mercenaries, Jian Chen." "What? He's that Jian Chen that the Protector clans have been searching for so many years? Doesn't that mean that the white tiger on his shoulder is the winged tiger god?" "Impossible. This is impossible. They said that Jian Chen was only a saint ruler, and that he had only broken through a while ago. How did he become a saint king so quickly? Even if Jian Chen's talent is unprecedented, his cultivation speed can't be at such a heaven-defying level. He can't be Jian Chen." The saint rulers all called out in shock. They stared at him with disbelief, but most of their gazes were focused on the white tiger on Jian Chen's shoulder. Their eyes burned with greed. Jian Chen's face sank and he glared at the saint rulers as he slowly glanced past them. He failed to find Bai Jian, so he bellowed out, "The captain of the flame mercenaries, Jian Chen, is present. Where is Bai Jian? Come for your death." Jian Chen's voice reverberated through the surroundings. It was enough for the void to begin trembling as his voice traveled over 100 kilometers away. "What? The captain of the flame mercenaries has returned? It's Captain Jian Chen. Captain Jian Chen has returned." Within the extinguished city, a few conscious mercenaries called out. Chapter 970. Battling by Yifei. Every single member who saw this began to pale. Their 4 powerful saint rulers had been slain so easily. They were greatly affected, and their souls were deeply struck with fear. In that moment, all the members of the Extinguishing Alliance felt like the shade of death had encased them. Although they had another 23 saint rulers, they did not feel safe in any way. Then, Jian Chen looked toward the 23 saint rulers after killing off 4. He slowly raised the emperor armament as it shone with a surging dark light. An energy of destruction filled the surroundings, as if roaring flames of death had encased the region. It caused the saint rulers to feel death from the bottom of their hearts. This was a power that could make them tremble, a power that made resistance impossible to even consider. The saint rulers were all frightened as they constantly retreated in the air. Their gazes toward Jian Chen were filled with dread. Jian Chen, this has nothing to do with us. It really doesn't have anything to do with us. The only reason we attacked Flame City was due to Bai Jian's temptations. Bai Jian is the main culprit, a saint ruler said with a trembling voice. Faced against a saint king, none of them even dared to flee, because saint kings could rip open space gates. There was nowhere they could run off to. Where is Bai Jian? Jian Chen's voice was icy cold and filled with killing intent. He's in the imperial city of the Felicity Empire, a saint ruler said hurriedly. Meanwhile, he prayed secretly. He hoped that Jian Chen would go to the Felicity Empire for revenge and leave this place. That way, they would have plenty of time to flee with their people and avoid this calamity. Bai Jian, it doesn't matter where you hide. I will never let you go. But before I go to the Felicity Kingdom, let me finish off all of you first, Jian Chen growled. He slowly pointed his emperor armament toward the saint rulers as killing intent spilled from him without restraint. It caused all the saint rulers to pale in fright. Jian Chen, it really has nothing to do with us. It's all due to Bai Jian. He's in control of everything. We're just his chess pieces, the saint rulers constantly attempted to explain. They no longer dared to resist Jian Chen after personally witnessing the deaths of 4 saint rulers, even though they had an advantage in numbers. Bai Jian will die with all of you, including the Extinguishing Alliance. I will not let any of you go, Jian Chen said coldly before charging at the 23 saint rulers. But at that very moment, the space before Jian Chen began to distort violently. A space gate suddenly formed, and before a person could even emerge, a tremendous aura appeared first. Jian Chen came to a halt and stared fixedly at the space gate. A cold light flickered in his eyes. The saint rulers all sighed a breath of relief. He too refused to believe that Jian Chen could reach Saint King in a few short years, which was why he thought that Jian Chen's powerful aura was completely due to the emperor armament. Tremendous saint force surged out from Bai Yifei. This was the power of a saint king. It was extremely great, enough to cause the surrounding space to shake violently. At the same time, invisible world force quickly gathered toward him, revolving around Bai Yifei. Jian Chen, I'll show you my strength. Bai Yifei's expression became vicious and he immediately produced a battle cry. The saint force and the world force around him fused together in that very moment, transforming into a huge finger that shot toward Jian Chen with lightning speed. The finger was 10 meters long and half a meter wide. It shot through the air as it radiated with a devastating aura, slashing through space. Jian Chen's cold smile curled up higher and higher. He looked at the finger nonchalantly before suddenly swinging out with his emperor armament. A meter-long black sword chi shot out. The sword chi radiated with an aura of destruction as it shot toward the huge finger. A massive crack formed wherever the sword chi passed by, reducing it to a region of darkness. Boom! Jian Chen's sword chi collided with Bai Yifei's huge finger in midair, while the violent residual energy immediately began to sweep through the surroundings. It caused the surrounding space to tremble violently. Even the earth below seemed to quake, causing mountains to collapse. Bai Yifei became rather stern and he growled, I never thought that the emperor armament would be so powerful, that a saint ruler can display such might. If that emperor armament enters my hands, my strength would definitely reach an unimaginable level. Toward the end, the greed in Bai Yifei's eyes thickened. At that moment, a black streak of light suddenly emerged. The sword chi did not completely disperse after collided with Bai Yifei's finger, and instead surged out from the ripples of energy in the air. It continued onward without a reduction in force. Bai Yifei's eyes narrowed suddenly, and he cried out, Crap! Immediately, energy began to surge before him, instantly condensing into a 3-meter-wide round shield to block the sword chi. The sword chi completely locked onto Bai Yifei, so he could only take it head-on now. Boom! The black sword chi collided with Bai Yifei's circular shield and produced a terrifying sound. The sword chi was far more powerful than Bai Yifei had imagined, so the shield condensed from Saint Force and World Force failed to endure it. It shattered loudly, while the sword chi had finally lost all of its power after breaking through 2 obstructions. It dispersed in the air. Even though this was the case, Bai Yifei was thrown back violently by its force. Blood sprayed uncontrollably from his mouth, falling toward the ground as a bloody mist. Bai Yifei flew for several dozen kilometers before finally stabilizing himself. He stared at Jian Chen in shock as disbelief overwhelmed his eyes. He said with difficulty, "How is this possible? How are you this strong? Did you really reach Saint King?" Even at now, Bai Yifei still struggled to accept this. Jian Chen's strength had grown from an ant's level to a level where he could heavily injure him. This was just shocking on an otherworldly scale. Thick killing intent poured from Jian Chen as he called out coldly, "Bai Yifei, I shall be taking your life today." As he said this, Jian Chen charged toward him threateningly with the Emperor armament. Bai Yifei revealed an ugly expression. A piece of jade instantly appeared in his hand and he crushed it directly, before slowly raising his hand. He let the wild wind scatter the jade dust as he sneered, "Jian Chen, your strength has really exceeded my imaginations, but I have already alerted the 10 protector clans. Before the protector clans, there is only death no matter how strong you are. If you don't run now, it'll be too late." Chapter 971, Resisting the Protector Clans, 1. Jian Chen snickered at Bai Yifei's attempt to scare him off. "Bai Yifei, even if all 10 Protector Clans gather here today, they won't be able to take my life." Dang! Jian Chen sped up toward Bai Yifei, traversing the distance between the two of them in the blink of an eye. The Emperor armament stabbed toward him like a black bolt of lightning. Bai Yifei was already heavily injured and could no longer function as well as before. Sensing the force of Jian Chen's strike, his heart immediately sank. However, he could not afford to move his arms slowly. A huge sword immediately appeared in his hand, and he placed it before himself to block the incoming strike. Jian Chen's weapon directly struck the huge sword before Bai Yifei. With the screeching of metal, the terrifying force knocked Bai Yifei backward once again. He immediately vomited blood a few more times. This time, he became even paler, without a shred of blood left in his face. Although Bai Yifei was also a Saint King, he was not Jian Chen's opponent with his current strength, as Jian Chen could display the power of a 7th heavenly layer Saint King with the Emperor armament. God damn it, how did Jian Chen's strength reach such a terrifying level in such a short amount of time? I don't even have the power to put up a fight. Bai Yifei was astounded inside. His gaze toward Jian Chen was filled with fear. Jian Chen grasped the Emperor armament tightly in his right hand as icy killing intent flickered in his eyes. With a slight movement of his body, he turned into a blur as he continued his pursuit of Bai Yifei. Bai Yifei reacted with a change in expression once again. From the two clashes, Jian Chen's strength already had him terrified, where a thought of utter defeat had sprouted in his mind. He immediately lost all interest in the battle when he saw Jian Chen chase up once again. He was prepared to rip open a space gate and leave. At this very moment, the space several kilometers away began to tremble and a space gate quickly formed. Immediately, a tremendous presence surged from within. With the appearance of the space gate, Bai Yifei became delighted. He gave up on his plan to flee and called out, "Ling Yuanzi, Jian Chen has returned and the winged tiger god is on his shoulder. If you don't come over immediately, he'll flee. The person who should be fleeing would be you, not me. Just a mere Ling Yuanzi is not enough to scare me off," Jian Chen said icily. He paid no attention to the space gate as he stared tightly at Bai Yifei. As he approached him, he stabbed out with the Emperor armament with no hesitation. Jian Chen's strike seemed to surpass the limitations of time and space, arriving before Bai Yifei in an instant. Bai Yifei's pupils narrowed to the size of pins. He could clearly see the dark sword expanding rapidly as it made its way toward him, while the shade of death now covered his head like a cloud. Madness appeared in Bai Yifei's eyes as he poured everything he had into blocking with his saint weapon. However, he had been struck by 2 heavy blows already, so his strength had decreased drastically. When the saint weapon was struck by the Emperor armament, it was knocked away by the powerful force while the Emperor armament continued onward with no reduction in force. It arrived before Bai Yifei's forehead. At this very moment, a white-robed, ruddy old man emerged from the space gate. He was a great elder of the Yuan sect, Ling Yuanzi. Ling Yuanzi saw that Bai Yifei was in danger as soon as he emerged from the space gate. His complexion immediately changed and he cried out, "Stop!" However, Jian Chen turned a deaf ear to his words. The Emperor armament stabbed mercilessly into Bai Yifei's forehead. SHWT. The Emperor armament impaled Bai Yifei's head. His soul seemed so weak before the might of the Emperor armament, unable to even withstand a single blow. His soul was directly wiped out. Bai Yifei's eyes became dull as life receded from them quickly. He was no longer able to remain in the air, falling down in the same posture he had, standing upright. Bai Yifei! Ling Yuanzi produced a miserable cry. He had become utterly enraged when he saw this, immediately flying toward Bai Yifei's corpse in an attempt to catch it. A cold light flickered through Jian Chen's eyes. With a jolt, the sword in his hand stabbed toward Ling Yuanzi out of nowhere. This strike was not Jian Chen's full strength, but it contained the might of a 6th heavenly layer Saint King. Ling Yuanzi bellowed and his saint weapon immediately materialized. He too swung out, producing a blade qi. Jian Chen's sword qi collided with the blade qi and produced a deafening boom. The blade qi was dispersed immediately, reduced to dense world force that dissipated into the surroundings while Jian Chen's sword qi weakened slightly as well. However, it continued toward Ling Yuanzi like a bolt of lightning. Ling Yuanzi's eyes narrowed and he became quite stern. The curved blade in his hand erupted with light and his arm jolted. It immediately multiplied into 2 other blades and 3 blade qi shot out at the same time. It flew toward the black sword qi in a triangular fashion. Boom! Ling Yuanzi's 2 attacks finally dispersed Jian Chen's sword qi. Ling Yuanzi no longer paid any attention to Bai Yifei's corpse after being struck with that attack. Instead, he immediately began to glare at Jian Chen in mid-air. He was extremely grim. "That's an Emperor armament. Jian Chen, I never thought you'd obtain an Emperor armament from your trip to the Sea Realm." Ling Yuanzi recognized that it was an Emperor armament with a single glance and he immediately revealed an ugly expression. As a great elder of a protector clan, Ling Yuanzi was knowledgeable. It was not the first time he had seen an Emperor armament, so he was naturally very familiar with the might of one. "Ling Yuanzi, when you pursued me all those years ago, I almost died in your hands. I shall be taking revenge for that today and slay you with the Emperor armament." "That will be your outcome," Jian Chen said coldly. Ling Yuanzi quickly glanced past the white tiger on Jian Chen's shoulder. "Jian Chen, do you really think that you can contend with the protector clans with just an Emperor armament? You are just too naive. You are indeed stronger than me right now, but not only will you fail to kill me today, you'll have to obediently give my Yuan sect the winged tiger god." As he said that, a piece of jade had already appeared silently in Ling Yuanzi's hands. He immediately crushed it, notifying the other great elders of the sect. Jian Chen immediately noticed Ling Yuanzi's minute movement and a sliver of cold light flashed through his eyes. He yelled, "Ling Yuanzi, since you're calling for reinforcements, I'll just kill you before they come." Jian Chen charged toward Ling Yuanzi with the Emperor armament in hand. It shone with a blinding dark light as an aura of destruction filled the surroundings. Tremendous ripples of energy shook the area around them, causing the space to distort into a blurry mess. This time, Jian Chen struck out as hard as he could. He did not hold back at all, completely displaying his strength equal to a 7th heavenly layer Saint King. He wanted to end the battle quickly. He planned to kill Ling Yuanzi before he could resist. Ling Yuanzi's expression finally changed when he sensed the might from Jian Chen. Given that he felt pressured from Jian Chen before, he now found Jian Chen to be utterly chilling. This is impossible. How can his strength become so terrifying in just a few years? Even with the Emperor armament, he couldn't have become this powerful. Just how does he cultivate? Shock overwhelmed Ling Yuanzi as he became rather pale. Jian Chen's long hair and clothes danced in the wind. Everywhere he passed seemed to become pitch black because of the chaotic force. He used the illusory flash, traversing several kilometers in an instant to arrive before Ling Yuanzi. Wielding the sword in one hand, he stabbed toward Ling Yuanzi with a lightning speed. The strike was ordinary, yet it made Ling Yuanzi feel like he could not avoid it at all. It was like no matter where he dodged, the strike would still arrive and that the only way out was to forcefully break through it. A gleam of light exploded in Ling Yuanzi's eyes as extremely powerful energy surged out wildly from his body. In that instant, a set of awe-inspiring armor had condensed on his body. At the same time, his curved blade pointed toward the sky. The wind and clouds in the sky immediately began to change and a great pressure descended on the region. It locked tightly onto Jian Chen. Blade formation of the wind and clouds. Ling Yuanzi bellowed. Suddenly, his blade disappeared into the void, as if it had become one with the surroundings. The wind and clouds in the sky seemed to be driven by some force, beginning to fuse together and condense into curved blades that gathered before Ling Yuanzi. In the blink of an eye, a dense wall of curved blades had gathered before him and every single one was of the same size. It seemed illusionary yet tangible, completely condensed from air and clouds. They all radiated with powerful ripples of energy. Go! Ling Yuanzi extended a finger toward Jian Chen. Immediately, the curved blade shot toward Jian Chen, surrounding and enveloping him as it constantly rotated. It formed something like a grinder as it constantly chopped at Jian Chen. At the same time, the wind and clouds above Ling Yuanzi churned and an even larger blade was condensed. It was 1,000 meters long and several dozen meters wide, extending directly into the sky. It radiated with a powerful force, causing the sky to tremble. Jian Chen, prepare to die. Ling Yuanzi's lips curled into a sneer and with a thought, the huge blade above him began to fall as it chopped toward Jian Chen. The space below was shattered with its descent, reduced to a patch of darkness and void. The huge blade fell extremely fast, arriving above Jian Chen in the blink of an eye. Ling Yuanzi already bore the smile of victory. He seemed to have already seen the moment where Jian Chen passed away. At this moment, Jian Chen's icy voice rang out. Ling Yuanzi, the power of your battle skill is impressive, but it's a pity that it's only a pseudo-saint tier battle skill and is not the real deal. A destructive energy began to radiate from the center of the blades as the voice rang out and a black light flashed. The formation was immediately broken through, reduced to a wild tempest and wisps of water vapor. Jian Chen emerged unharmed in the air, remaining calm and composed. He stared nonchalantly at the huge blade and pointed his emperor armament to the sky. All his power had completely erupted forth as a huge sword qi shot out from the emperor armament. It surged into the air like an enraged dragon. Boom! A deafening sound rang out as the two forces collided. The wild residual energy destroyed the surroundings, causing the space to collapse and mountains to fall. The entire world seemed to quake violently. The huge blade was broken through and gradually dispersed into the surroundings, while Ling Yuanzi's joyful expression vanished as well. His face was now sunken. Suddenly, a tremendous pressure descended grandly onto the surroundings, turning the region in a radius of several dozen kilometers into a blur. The pressure seemed to have frozen the area. The pressure descended layer by layer from the sky, wrapping around Jian Chen like chains. It seemed to want to immobilize him. Jian Chen bellowed and the chaotic Niden in his dantian began to produce strands of chaotic force that filled every corner of his body. He pushed the chaotic body to its utmost limits, before suddenly jolting. He broke through the pressure's immobilization, causing the space around him to tremble violently. As soon as he broke free, a tremendous ripple of energy appeared before him. A huge finger had appeared out of nowhere in front of Ling Yuanzi. The finger was completely condensed out of energy. It was 5 meters long and half a meter thick. It radiated with a terrifying pressure, shaking up the surrounding space to the point that it distorted and became blurry. Jian Chen finally became rather stern. Ling Yuanzi had completely charged up his Saint-tier battle skill. With his strength as a 5th heavenly layer Saint King, it possessed the might of a 7th heavenly layer Saint King. This was enough to threaten Jian Chen. Jian Chen, I refuse to believe that you can take my battle skill head-on and come out unharmed. Dang! Ling Yuanzi called out before suddenly pointing at Jian Chen. Immediately, the huge finger ripped a hole in space and shot toward Jian Chen with a devastating pressure. Jian Chen sucked in a deep breath and charged forward instead of retreating. He fearlessly charged up to the giant finger on his own initiative, and his emperor armament began to expand. In the blink of an eye, it became 10 meters long and he stabbed out toward the giant finger. Boom! The emperor armament collided with the giant finger with a violent boom. The terrifyingly powerful ripples of energy directly ripped through space, reducing the region into darkness. Even the sun in the sky dulled. Jian Chen began to retreat rapidly under the violent energy, shooting backward uncontrollably. However, the giant finger had yet to dissipate before him, continuing toward Jian Chen with no reduction in speed. However, it had already shrunk by 1/10. Jian Chen bellowed out once again and the giant emperor armament in his hand swept through the sky as a beautiful dark streak, striking the giant finger heavily once again. With another boom, the giant finger shrunk by another 1/10 from Jian Chen's attack. The violent energy knocked back Jian Chen again, causing him to speed up as he flew backward. His clothes were reduced to shreds, revealing the golden silk mail underneath. The giant finger possessed the power of a 7th heavenly layer Saint King. It was equal to Jian Chen's strength, or maybe even weaker a little. Despite this, it was still a Saint tier battle skill in the end. It was no ordinary attack, so unless the disparity between the two was drastic, it could not be nullified so easily. Jian Chen bellowed out several times, striking out 10 more times with all his force before finally dissipating the Saint tier battle skill into energy that surged in the surroundings. He remained uninjured as he had the chaotic body, but he was in a messy shape. Why, you actually blocked by Saint tier battle skill perfectly. How is that possible? Ling Yuanzi was stunned as he stared at Jian Chen from afar. He was dumbstruck, while the shock he experienced had already reached its utmost limits. He knew exactly how powerful his Saint tier battle skill was. Even when a 7th heavenly layer Saint King faced up against it, they would receive some wounds, or even be heavily injured. Meanwhile, Jian Chen's personal strength was nowhere near the 7th heavenly layer. However, Jian Chen was still able to nullify his attack easily just through the use of the Emperor armament and sustained no injuries. This was unbelievable. Ling Yuanzi, even your Saint tier battle skill cannot injure me. I'd like to see what else you have up your sleeve now, Jian Chen laughed wildly. Using the illusory flash, he charged toward Ling Yuanzi as a blur and began fighting him up close. Ling Yuanzi gritted his teeth as he endured, hoping that he could last just a little longer until the reinforcements arrived. However, the difference in their strength was just too great, so he was injured after just a few bouts. His ribs were crushed by a kick from Jian Chen, while his entire chest caved in. His organs had all ruptured, and the wound on his neck was even worse. Half his neck was severed. If he did not dodge in time, he would have probably been decapitated. A space gate suddenly appeared high up in the sky as Ling Yuanzi was in the middle of danger. Immediately, several tremendous presences emerged. The reinforcements from the Yuan sect had arrived. Ling Yuanzi became delighted. He no longer paid attention to any dignity he should have been preserving and cried out for help. Yangzi, save me! Ling Yuanzi's miserable voice passed through the space gate clearly, causing it to condense even faster. Jian Chen's heart sank slightly. He knew that he did not have much time left to kill Ling Yuanzi, so he immediately struck out as fast as he could. The sword cut through the air, targeting the center of Ling Yuanzi's eyebrows. Ling Yuanzi immediately used his curved blade to block. Although he managed to repel Jian Chen's life-threatening blow, it worsened his injuries, causing him to constantly vomit blood. Jian Chen's gaze became icy cold. Without any hesitation, a second strike followed. The attack broke through the limitations of space and stabbed toward the center of Ling Yuanzi's eyebrows once again. Ling Yuanzi's pupils narrowed to the size of needles. Unwillingness to give in flickered through his eyes. He was unable to block this lightning speed strike. At this moment, the space gate stabilized. A white-robed, ruddy old man stepped out in front. His expression changed immediately as soon as he stepped out as he saw Ling Yuanzi in the middle of danger. He called out, "Stop." He extended a finger and a force tore through the air. It broke through the limitations of space and descended upon Jian Chen in an instant, viciously knocking away the Emperor armament that stabbed toward Ling Yuanzi. The Emperor armament was knocked away as soon as it came into contact with Ling Yuanzi's skin. The force from the tiny movement contained unbelievable power, jolting Jian Chen's arm to the point that it became numb. Jian Chen was shocked. He knew the person that had just come possessed strength he could not contend against, but he felt no fear. He stabbed out once again with the Emperor armament in an attempt to kill off Ling Yuanzi. How dare you! Yi Yangzi became furious. He swung his sleeves and the wind began to blow violently. A whirlwind that connected the sky and the ground suddenly formed, whistling toward Jian Chen with an earth-piercing sound. Jian Chen's Emperor armament had already stabbed through Ling Yuanzi's forehead. The whirlwind arrived just as part of the sword had entered. The high-speed wind was like sharp blades, constantly chopping at Jian Chen's body. It caused Jian Chen to feel pain all over and white marks appeared all over him. The violent wind had also pulled his body backward, preventing the Emperor armament from stabbing any further into Ling Yuanzi's head. Instead, it was slowly drawn out, failing to impale Ling Yuanzi's soul. Jian Chen was unable to kill him off completely. However, Ling Yuanzi had still suffered unimaginable injuries. He shrieked out uncontrollably and the top of his head suddenly exploded. A dull soul flew out from within, quickly streaking toward the furious Yi Yangzi. Ling Yuanzi had actually abandoned his body and fled in soul form. As soon as he fled his body, his head exploded loudly. Slivers of black energy that radiated with a destructive aura leaked out from his head, reducing it to pieces. Jian Chen found it harder and harder to regain his stability under the wild whirlwind. When he saw Ling Yuanzi's soul flee, he immediately panicked and swung his sword. He produced a powerful sword qi that ripped through the air, shooting toward Ling Yuanzi's soul. Blood drained from Yi Yangzi's face as killing intent flickered in his eyes. He grabbed at the empty space with his left hand, containing the region of space and grasping Ling Yuanzi's soul. At the same time, he formed a palm with his right hand and struck toward Jian Chen. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.